The old man wheezed as he lay on a makeshift bed in his small hut. He thought to himself, I am an earthling, an inhabitant of a civilized world. I come from a civilized. A young girl rushed into the room carrying a bowl of steamed buns. She looked down at the man with a sad expression. Oh, no. Old man Seo. How sad. Mother wanted me to bring you this. The old man looked at her weakly. Okay, thank you. The girl placed the bowl on the floor near him. No problem. Just get well and make us some of your soap again, please. The cold wind blew through the snowy village outside. The old man thought to himself. 50 years. It has been 50 years since I fell into this damned world. He coughed as blood splattered against his white beard. It has been 50 years since I fell into this damned world. We were on our way to the company workshop with Director Kim and everyone else when we were suddenly swept up by a landslide and woke up in a strange world. A giant fox with 3 tails, a 2-headed red snake, and strange men who can fly appeared before us. We had fallen into the world of Shenxia novels I used to read from time to time. Despite that, I knew my coworkers would live better lives than everyone else. Except for me. The sage-like beings who descended from above were in awe of my coworkers' mythical talents and took each one of them into the sky. Only Director Kim and I remained in this world. To be honest, we had our hopes that something special would happen to us too, but Director Kim and I didn't have any special abilities. Without knowing much about this world, all we could do was manual labor. 6 months passed. Director Kim told me he couldn't live like this any longer and used all his money to buy a third-rate martial arts book sold on the streets. Within 3 months, he mastered it and became a full-fledged martial artist. He worked for the nation and learned martial arts that were more and more advanced. After he became a powerful warrior, he left for the Zhonghu. Leaving me behind, I wondered if something special could happen to me as well. But until the end, nothing happened to me at all. The old man groaned as his strength left him. After 50 years, I am now just an old man dying from the common cold. I am from Earth. I've tried my hardest to live. I learned the language and how to write, made a living, bought a small plot of land, and built my own house. I started making some decent money when I began to make soap using lye. In this equivalent of medieval China, soap was essentially a new concept. However, even that ended after thieves stole my soap recipe and their thugs booted me out of the market. Now I am waiting for my death, having been refused by this world. He gritted his teeth in agony. Even though I tried my hardest, what must I do? What must I do? Why couldn't I have been selected? Even if I'm not special, why do I have to continue having things taken away from me? I no longer have the energy to keep my eyes open. If I just had a bit more power, maybe I might have had more opportunities. Opportunities. That was how I died. A brilliant light suddenly flashed in the darkness. Eunhyun gasped as he woke up to a bright blue sky. He groaned as he sat up in the lush green grass. What? Why am I still alive? Are these the clothes I wore back on Earth? Oh, my head. The other coworkers sat up and looked around in confusion. Where are we? Eunhyun looked at his young hands. He thought to himself, I finally realized it. I didn't come to this world without powers. I gained the power of regression. Director Kim looked around the forest with a wide smile. We were just on our company trip. It is the first day. The first day we fell into this strange world. While we were in the SUV, we suddenly got swept up by a landslide. Yeah, the landslide happened, and I saw a bright light. Eunhyun stood up and brushed himself off. He thought to himself, it is hard to remember what happened 50 years ago, though. If I've regressed, what should I do now? Most regression stories start with abusing future information, but all I know is how to make soap. Section Chief Jaeon Myung-hoon grabbed Eunhyun by the collar of his shirt. Manager Seo Eunhyun. Eunhyun looked at him calmly. Oh, Section Chief. Sorry, I was just surprised. Myung-hoon swung his arm and slapped Eunhyun across the face. You fucking idiot. You dozed off while driving on the mountainside? You almost got us all killed. Eunhyun touched the blood on his lip. He thought to himself, I'd forgotten about that. I haven't heard that title in so long. I couldn't tell he was referring to me. Myung-hoon leaned in with a threatening glare. Manager Seo, do you want to lose your job the moment we get back? Eunhyun stared at the man. He thought to himself, yeah, Section Chief Jaeon Myung-hoon is a son of a bitch. He is the nephew of Jaeon Myung-chul, and managing director at the company I worked at. He is a lucky bastard who became a section chief at the age of 32 by nepotism. Director Kim stepped between them. Hold on, stop right there. Manager Seo couldn't have avoided that landslide, no matter what he did. Myung-hoon gestured to the other coworkers. Aren't you mad, Chief O? This insane bastard was dozing off. That is why we are in this situation. Eunhyun stepped forward. Yeah, I definitely dozed off. But the reason I did was because you handed your work over to me, Jaeon Myung-hoon. That is why I had to stay up late. Moreover, Weren't you supposed to be in charge of driving? Myung-hoon yelled at the others. Man, this idiot got all of us stranded. Eunhyun bowed his head slightly. He thought to himself, I'm slowly starting to recall my memories from 50 years ago. I was still so shocked back then that I apologized to Jaeon Myung-hoon. I thought I was in the wrong. Then I went on to spend the next 50 years just like that, apologizing to people. Even when a group of bandits trampled over me and took my belongings. When a damned martial artist mocked me, or when a regional official took everything I had in the name of taxes, I kept apologizing. But there was one thing I realized after years of keeping it in. Sure, I have to keep my temper in front of those that I can't handle, but... Eunhyun stood tall and looked Myung-hoon in the eye. Section Chief Jaeon, I know you are mad, but now is not the time to be pointing fingers. Myung-hoon bared his teeth in rage. What? You damn son of a bitch. Are you asking for a fight? Myung-hoon threw a punch at Eunhyun's head. Eunhyun tilted his head back and dodged the strike with ease. He thought to himself, I don't need to kneel down to someone I can handle. Eunhyun drove his fist into Myung-hoon's face and sent him flying backward. The co-workers gasped in shock as the man hit the ground. Eunhyun looked down at his opponent. He thought to himself, in my past life, I've been beaten up by martial artists countless times. I was beaten up by bandits while getting herbs in the mountains, by more bandits on a year of a bad harvest, and even by officials because I couldn't pay my taxes. In that world of violence, I was able to gain something that these people lack. Violence. Eunhyun delivered a flurry of punches to Myung-hoon's face. If you hit someone in the eyes, their fear is amplified. After being beaten up like this, only 2 words instinctively leave your mouth. Myung-hoon sobbed as he clutched his bloody nose. I am sorry. I am sorry. Eunhyun exhaled slowly. He thought to himself, I may not have the mythical talents mentioned by those transcendent individuals or amazing martial arts that would make me famous in the martial arts world, but I do have the ability to change fate. Myung-hoon groveled on the grass, clutching his bruised face. The co-workers stood in a semicircle, looking at the scene with wide eyes. One man stepped forward and pointed toward the victim. Manager Seo, how could you do that to your own colleague? Eunhyun sighed and looked over his shoulder. You're right. Phew. I just got so angry there. I'm sorry if you were all shocked. He bowed his head toward the group. He thought to himself, I won't see these people again until I die anyway. As I was the one who was driving, I apologize for this accident, too. Director Kim looked at Eunhyun with a serious expression. Sure, Section Chief Jaeon was being a bit harsh. You couldn't really have done anything there. Even then, you overreacted, Manager Seo. Apologize to him directly. Eunhyun looked down at the grass. He thought to himself, but I'll continue seeing Director Kim. Director Kim will become one of the strongest martial artists there is once he gets to learning. If I support him as much as I can in this life, I'm sure I'll get something out of it too. That means I need to get on his good side now. Eunhyun reached out a hand toward the fallen man. Section Chief Jaeon, my reaction was not warranted. I apologize. Myung-hoon gritted his teeth as he stared up at Eunhyun. Eunhyun stared back with cold, unwavering eyes. Myung-hoon looked away and stayed silent. Director Kim turned toward the surrounding trees. Anyway, why don't we try to get out of these woods and look for a village? Eunhyun nodded. That's the logical thing to do. The group walked toward a ledge overlooking a vast, misty valley. Director Kim pointed toward the distance. Don't you see something over there? Ah, yes. Eunhyun watched them from behind. He thought to himself, but Director, common sense has no place in this world. Here, immortals fly wild, trying to secure their immortality, and the only rule that reigns in this land is the strong devours the weak. The people of this place, the Murum, will fight with swords for wealth and honor. A massive waterfall cascaded down a cliffside where the group stood. The forest stretched out endlessly beneath the mountains. He thought to himself, this forest's name is Ascension Path. There is no village, city, or nation anywhere around here. Director Kim looked at the sky. Manager Seo, the sun is going to set soon. Why don't we set up a shelter somewhere safe? Eunhyun turned to him. You're right. Director Kim looked at the trunk of the car, which was filled with boxes of water and snacks. Ah, what about the car? There's quite a lot of things in there that we packed for the workshop. Eunhyun looked away. He thought to himself, it's a shame, but we won't be able to find the car. Of course, they won't believe me. I'll just let them look for the car instead of wasting my energy trying to convince them. He spoke to the group. Let's split up, then. One team can look for shelter, and the other can look for the car. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Director Kim looked at the group. Why don't we get back here before it's completely dark? A small fire crackled in front of a dark cave entrance. One of the women held a roasted chestnut and looked puzzled. I don't get it. We were in a landslide while we were in a car, so how did we end up here while the car is gone? Another man chewed on his food. Huh, I don't get it either. Whoa, this tastes like chestnuts. Eunhyun sat by the fire, holding a handful of nuts. It's crunchy, right? I got a lot, so have as much as you want. Director Kim laughed heartily. Haha. Goodness, it's a pretty serious situation, but we're having fun thanks to you, Manager Seo. I knew you were this dependable even back in the company. You're so diligent. If I remember correctly, you were tired while driving because you had to work late yesterday, too. Ahem. A woman with long hair smiled. You're right. Our manager is really diligent. It feels like we're camping thanks to this cave he found. The other girls nodded. Right? Eunhyun looked at the dancing flames. He thought to himself, in my past life, we found this place only after being lost in the woods for hours. I was just lucky. Another man patted his shoulder. Buddy, you can just take the compliment. Eunhyun smiled. Yeah, I'll enjoy this moment. Tonight will be the last moment we can laugh like this. The full moon hung high in the dark sky. Eunhyun suddenly dropped to his knees and pressed his forehead against the dirt. He trembled. I offer my greetings to the Lord of the Forest. A massive, purple-furred fox with glowing red eyes stepped out of the shadows. The creature's voice echoed with power. Quite the unique scent for a human. Despite having lived thousands of years, I have never smelled humans like you. A woman rubbed her eyes and woke up. Manager Seo, what is? She looked up and screamed at the top of her lungs. Kaya, a monster. Myung-hoon and the others jumped back in terror. A monster. Eunhyun turned his head, his eyes wide with fear. Show your manners to the Lord of the Forest. Get on your knees. The fox bared its massive fangs. Every time I come across you humans, I am reminded how foolish and rude you all are. I would usually rip off all your limbs. But since one of you seems to know how to treat me, I shall forgive you. With that being said, you must pay the price for being in my territory. If one of you offer me an arm, I will let you stay here. Eunhyun shook as he lay on the ground. He thought to himself, in my past life, everyone saw this monster and screamed in panic, and we all ended up dead, having angered the fox. But it seems like the fox appreciates my manners this time. The fox licked its lips. Now, who will give me their arm? Eunhyun looked at his hand. He thought to himself, it's not all our limbs like last time. Just one person's arm, that's all we need to sacrifice. He thought about the future cultivators. Even a lost arm will be healed by the cultivators who will appear 2 days later. Plus, I've already prepared an herb that'll reduce the pain. Eunhyun stood up and held out his left arm. I will offer my arm. The co-workers stared in stunned silence. The fox's eyes narrowed. You know your manners. It opened its massive jaws and lunged forward. I will try to make it as painless as possible in return. Eunhyun let out a piercing scream as blood sprayed into the air. The fox's teeth crushed through bone and flesh. The fox licked the blood from its muzzle. The co-workers watched in horror, unable to move. Eunhyun collapsed to the ground, clutching his bleeding shoulder. Ugh! Ack! The herb! It hurts so bad. He pulled a jagged root from his pocket and shoved it into his mouth. He chewed frantically. The fox looked down at him. I thought you might taste different since you smelled different. But you taste the same as the other humans. Actually, you taste worse because of all the impurities in your veins. Eunhyun panted heavily. He thought to himself, the herb actually helped a lot with the pain. He spoke to the fox. I apologize that my offering was not good enough. The fox turned away. I will allow you to stay for 7 days in my territory. You won't die thanks to my divinity. The massive beast leapt into the air and disappeared over the trees. Eunhyun fell forward, gasping for air. Director Kim and the women rushed to his side. Manager Seo. Eunhyun looked up weakly. Let's go inside. I'll explain. He walked back into the cave, leaning on his companions. I met that fox when I left the cave early this morning. The fox told me. Director Kim's face went pale. The Murum? You mean we're in the Murum? Haha, I would have never imagined. Eunhyun sat against the stone wall, his shirt soaked in blood. Anyway, we'll be safe for a week since I gave up my arm. Myung-hoon looked worried. A week? What about after? Eunhyun breathed heavily. We need to give up something else. I'm getting sleepy. I'm going to rest a bit. I hope you understand. Eunhyun closed his eyes. Outside, the moon shone through the clouds. A woman whispered, Section Chief Jaeon, how can you say that? Manager Seo sacrificed his own arm. Director Kim shook his head. I can't say I agree with you either. Myung-hoon leaned forward, his voice low and sharp. Then who wants to give up their arm and leg in a week? But still, Manager Seo is very useful. He's the one who provided us food and shelter. So we'll learn as much as we can from him in a week. Since he's already lost an arm, he won't last long anyway. That's why we should have him be the sacrifice again. Eunhyun stood just inside the shadows of the cave, listening to every word. Eunhyun watched the group from the shadows of the cave. He thought to himself, So, now that I've become debilitated, he wants to chop off one of my limbs every week to give to the fox? He gripped a jagged rock in his hand. He thought to himself, that's not exactly pleasing. Definitely not. With the violence I've learned from being beaten up for 50 years, I can easily kill a modern-day man like Jaeon Myung-hoon with one arm. He watched Myung-hoon argue with the others. He wondered to himself, should I kill him? Eunhyun took a deep breath. No, the fear surely must have just paralyzed our minds. If I act too cruel right now, it'll cause issues with my relationship with Director Kim. He walked out into the light and looked at Myung-hoon. Hey, Jaeon Myung-hoon, shut the fuck up if you don't want your ankles to break again. He chuckled to himself. Yeah, they're good people. It's just a confusing situation for everyone. The sun set over the distant mountains. The next day arrived with a clear sky. The group encountered a massive two-headed red snake. Eunhyun thought to himself, unlike the fox who ate my arm, the two-headed snake only requested a small amount of blood. It's the very same snake that sucked out Chief O's blood who'd lost his limbs in the last life. Chief O stepped forward and rolled up his sleeve. If it's just a small amount. Chief O put his own arm forward this time. The snake bit down and then immediately pulled back. The creature spat on the ground. Disgusting. This is the worst human blood I've ever had. Eunhyun smirked. He thought to himself, it's the blood of a 21st century worker, drenched in nicotine and cholesterol. No wonder it'd taste gross. Eunhyun looked at Myung-hoon. Jaeon Myung-hoon, come with me to pick some herbs. Myung-hoon looked offended. What? Did you just call me by my full name? Eunhyun stared him down. Aren't you hungry? I'll tell you about the fruits and edible herbs, so follow me. Myung-hoon sat on the grass, looking defeated. I am. Eunhyun walked away. I plan to give my arm to the fox next week as well. If I die, someone needs to know how to survive in this forest. Myung-hoon's face lit up with hope. Really? Thank you. Thank you so much. Eunhyun looked back with a cold gaze. He thought to himself, thanks? The fox won't be coming back, and you'll never make use of this knowledge. Eunhyun shouted at the man. Jaeon Myung-hoon, how many times do I need to tell you that that's the wrong fruit? Concentrate. Myung-hoon held a handful of berries. Sorry. Eunhyun pointed at the tree. That fruit will get you killed. Understand? Myung-hoon continued to dig frantically. He panted heavily. I need a break. I've been digging non-stop to get these herbs. Eunhyun watched him. He thought to himself, this is how Jaeon Myung-hoon used to punish me when I first entered the company. We need to finish before dusk, so hurry up. Myung-hoon suddenly stopped and stared at a plant. This is ginseng? Myung-hoon pulled a massive root from the earth. This thing is massive. This is natural ginseng, right? Eunhyun looked at it. Yeah, something like that. Myung-hoon smiled. Whoa, it does resemble ginseng. Eunhyun thought to himself. But to be precise, it's a yellow bamboo root. It might be because the ascension path is so full of energy, but yellow bamboo roots, which are typically as small as a pinky finger, grow to this size here. It won't be of much use to cultivators, but it's an extremely precious medicine for martial artists to increase chi. It should help Director Kim. Eunhyun pointed at the ground. There's two more right there. Myung-hoon laughed. Amazing. Is it okay to dig up this much wild ginseng? Eunhyun nodded. Of course. Take your shirt off and place them in your shirt. The sun began to set behind the trees. It's almost time now. Now, let's head back. A massive explosion of light and lightning tore through the night sky. Myung-hoon screamed as he fell to the ground. Ugh! Chief O collapsed next to him. One of the women held her head in pain. What's wrong with you guys? Three figures descended from the sky in glowing robes. A man in gold robes laughed. Oh ho, what a surprise. To think we'd find such uncut talent here. The man gestured at the others. Be gone, Byuko. They are mine. A muscular man with a top knot frowned. How shameless, Hyogwak. Director Kim looked up in terror. You people are. Who are you people? Hyogwak looked down at the group. Only those three have spiritual roots. The rest are just normal mortals. He raised his hand and gathered a ball of crackling golden electricity. He fired a bolt of lightning into Myung-hoon. Myung-hoon screamed in agony as the energy surged through him. Director Kim yelled out, Section Chief Jaeon. Hyogwak smiled. Incredible. It's the body of heavenly golden thunder. A woman in black robes holding a lute stepped forward. Move! It's my turn. She struck the strings of her instrument. A wave of purple energy slammed into a woman. The woman in black laughed. Ghostly yin transforming immortal root. To think such a thing really existed. Byuko landed on the ground with a heavy thud. Unique holy body. He grabbed Director Kim by the shoulder. What's going on? Byuko smiled. Oh ho, to think such a body could exist. I will take you three as disciples of the Azure Heaven Creation sect. All three of you have the talent to change the entire world. Hyogwak looked at the terrified survivors. How does that sound? I can't breathe. What is this force? I feel like I'd die if I refuse. The woman in black leaned over Myung-hoon. No. Join the Black Ghost Valley instead. We have every cultivation method. Bayuko growled. Damn you. Immortality. The power to overturn the heavens. Fame and wealth. I will ensure you get all of those things within 100 years. The three cultivators began to argue. What are you saying? The Golden Divine Heavenly Thunder sect is the most suited to. Director Kim pointed at the forest. Hold on. Could you get us out of this forest? We'll all die here at this rate. One of the cultivators pulled out a green bottle. Mortals worry too much. He poured a glowing liquid onto the ground. How did you get to the ascension path with such a worthless body? Myung-hoon screamed as the energy washed over him. Seems like one of them lost an arm to that fox. Seeing the wound, he offered it up himself. He placed a hand on Eunhyun's stump. Blue energy flared as a new arm began to grow. You may be a mere mortal, but you've got guts. Eunhyun looked at his hand. Thank you. The cultivators prepared to leave. We captured all the beasts and monsters of the ascension path on the way here. It'll be safe here for the next 10 years. Director Kim reached out. Wait, hold on. We don't even know which way to go to leave. They flew away into the dark sky. Director Kim screamed. Section Chief Jaeon. Chief O. Deputy Manager Kong. Eunhyun watched them go. He thought to himself. The same thing happened 50 years ago. No matter how hard we shouted, they ignored us like insects and continued on their way. But at least he healed my arm. He flexed his fingers. Director Kim collapsed and panted. Damn it. What do you want us to do? In a forest like this. He looked at the sky and saw streaks of light. What are all those lights in the sky? Is there something in that direction? The next day brought a heavy thunderstorm. Lightning flashed through the trees. The rain poured down over the cave. Deputy Manager O lay on the ground, coughing. A woman looked at Eunhyun in a panic. Deputy Manager Seo, Deputy Manager O is in terrible condition. Is there some kind of herb we could use? What must we do? Eunhyun stood with his back to them. Let's wait a little longer. Someone might appear and heal her. Director Kim looked at him. Huh? The sound of footsteps echoed from the cave entrance. A tall man in elegant robes stepped into the light. He spoke with a calm voice. Mortals in the ascension path. Like ants suffering among the competition between dragons. Director Kim backed away. Who are you? The man smiled, his long blue hair flowing behind him. He looked at them with glowing eyes. I am the Sea Dragon King. Seo Wol. The heavy rain lashed against the stone cave in the dark of night. Seo Wol stood calmly as he explained his presence to the group. Control the storm? Yes. The storm suddenly appeared out of nowhere. I came to look for its cause. That lady lying over there must have used the sorcery of the storm. She is an ordinary woman without even a trace of cultivation. How could she wield such overwhelming power? Additionally, she is not even doing it consciously. How strange. Eunhyun stepped forward with a wary gaze. Actually, we are confused ones. We have only not been in this place for long, yet one after another, powerful people like you appear and take away my companions. Seo Wol threw back his head and laughed loudly. So you are saying, amongst your colleagues, there were a few with extraordinary potential, and then, as if prearranged, powerful cultivators showed up and took them away. And now, here I am, conveniently appearing in front of this woman? Yes. The man leaned in close, his green eyes glowing with an eerie light. Dear mortal, do you know where we are? A massive pillar of light erupted from a temple in the distance. This place is known as Ascension Path, or the Path to Ascension. It is a key gateway that leads to the upper realm. In just a few months, a dimensional rift called the Ascension Gate will open right around here. It happens once every 1,000 years. Countless high-level cultivators and spiritual beings would have already begun gathering around Path to Ascension to ascend to the upper realm. So, isn't it quite likely that cultivators like myself would appear near you? Eunhyun looked at Director Kim. I see. Director Kim raised a finger in confusion. But they said they were taking my colleagues to join their sects. If they are ascending to the upper realm, how can our colleagues join them? Seo Wol reached into his blue robes. Well, I guess it might be hard for mortals like you to understand. There is a technique amongst cultivators used to shrink large objects and store them inside magical tools like this. They have likely stored their sects inside items like these. Their goal is to ascend to the upper realm along with their entire sect when the Ascension Gate opens. He held up a small white ceramic bottle. In fact, I, too, have packed one of the undersea castles of my Sea Dragon clan inside this very item. A vision of a massive golden tower appeared above the bottle. In it, 1,800 sea dragons lie dormant. Eunhyun and Director Kim stared in total silence. Seo Wol placed a hand on the sick woman's forehead. How peculiar and intriguing. If she were to join the Sea Dragon clan, she could become something extraordinary. Director Kim rushed toward them with his hand outstretched. Wait, Miss O. The air suddenly grew heavy with a crushing pressure. Director Kim gasped and fell to his knees as the ground cracked beneath him. He groaned in pain. Seo Wool picked up the unconscious woman. I will give her my blood and accept her as my kin. That would be best for all of us. Also, one more piece of advice. Don't casually ask high-level cultivators questions. I answered because I am generous, but most cultivators would have killed you for the mere act of asking a question. He walked out into the rain, carrying the woman. Director Kim and Eunhyun lay on the ground, unable to move. A massive explosion of light filled the sky as a giant blue dragon soared into the clouds. The sun rose over the lush green trees the next morning. Eunhyun stood with the remaining woman. They have all been kidnapped. The woman looked at the forest with a distant gaze. What even is this? An avalanche out of nowhere, then immortals and dragons abduct my colleagues. Ha! Ha ha! Eunhyun walked over and patted her on the back. Hey! The woman turned to him with tears in her eyes. Manager Seo, please, you must not be taken as well too. If you are taken too, I won't be able to survive in this forest alone. Eunhyun looked at her with a somber expression. Unfortunately, our time is up. The woman gasped in terror as a shadow fell over them. Something is coming. What's wrong with you now? Director Kim? A flock of birds took flight as a massive roar echoed through the forest. He is here. A giant gray beast with a mechanical face leapt onto a rock. A creepy old man with long white hair and a monocle sat upon its back. He laughed. Huh? Mortals? How did mere mortals get into the path to ascension? The old man leaned on his cane. Oh, I see. When the ascension gate is about to open, the surrounding space becomes unstable. They must have been caught in a spatial storm. I really am a genius. Anyway, mortals, who was the one who just emitted that massive consciousness? That was such a powerful presence. I thought a sage from the upper realm had descended. Was it that girl? Director Kim jumped in front of the woman, waving his arms. Who are you? Manager Kim is our colleague. The old man gestured with his cane. A blast of wind struck Director Kim and sent him flying through the air. Eunhyun lunged forward. Director Kim, he caught the man, but the force drove them both into the ground. The impact tore the shirt from Eunhyun's back, revealing charred and mangled flesh. He panted heavily. I'm okay. The sage reached out and grabbed the woman by the chin. Child, let me take you in. You don't have any spiritual root, but I can awaken it for you with my power. I wonder what would happen if such a strange consciousness evolved into a cultivator's divine consciousness. The woman cried as the man gripped her face. Director, deputy manager. The sage frowned and his eyes glowed with a terrifying light. Are you still clinging to your worldly attachments even after I offered to take you in? In that case, I shall sever those ties for you myself. Eunhyun and Director Kim were lifted into the air by an invisible force. They groaned as they floated helplessly. The woman screamed, No, please. I'll do anything you ask. Just spare them. The sage looked at her with a stern expression. Then you must forget all your worldly ties. Understand? The woman bowed her head. I understand. The old man dropped the two men back to the ground. But if I leave them here, you'll remain attached. So I'll return them to a mortal nation nearby. They'll be randomly scattered through a dimensional rift. Not even I know where they'll land. He raised his hand and opened a swirling golden portal. The vacuum began to pull Director Kim and Eunhyun inside. Director Kim screamed, Whoa, what is this? Eunhyun reached out toward the ground. Damn it, I have to grab the herbs. He grabbed the shirt full of roots just as the portal swallowed him. The woman watched as her friends disappeared into the void. Wait, Eunhyun, no. Eunhyun and Director Kim lay on the floor of a stone room. Eunhyun opened his eyes and looked at the ceiling. Huh? Where is this? He sat up and rubbed his head. Director Kim lay unconscious beside him. People in traditional robes walked past the doorway. One man stopped and looked at them. Who's that lunatic? Eunhyun stood up and walked into the busy street. He thought to himself, so that immortal was telling the truth. Where we land is random. I see. Though, this path feels familiar for some reason. I see. This is the place I once lived in. The capital of Yongguo, Seokyung City. The city of Seokyung bustled with life under the bright blue sky. Director Kim sat on the floor of a warehouse and sighed. Manager Seo, I can't keep up with what's going on anymore. Eunhyun leaned against a wooden pillar. I feel the same way. It would be nice if this was all just a dream. Eunhyun thought to himself. I may have regressed, but in my past life, I was nothing but a powerless herb gatherer. The two men walked through the busy market. The townspeople whispered and pointed at their strange clothes. Director Kim looked around in confusion. What are they saying? It sounds like Chinese. Why are the people whispering while looking at us? Eunhyun kept his gaze forward. They're saying that the clothes we're wearing look funny. Director Kim jumped in surprise. Huh? Eunhyun smiled. Don't worry, Director. I know a bit of Chinese. Eunhyun thought to himself. I lied. The language they're speaking is not Chinese. Other than the fact that they use the same characters, it sounds completely different. In my past life, I had to endure the mockery of beggars for 2 months just to learn the basics of the language. Eunhyun stood before the large wooden gate of a medicine hall. He pulled a massive root from his bundle. The shopkeeper's eyes widened in shock as he held the herb. Goodness, you're letting us buy such precious herbs? Those yellow bamboo roots are at least 800 years old, of course. This should be worth about 15 silver ingots. Eunhyun swallowed hard. 15. He thought to himself. I've never had that much money in my past life. Eunhyun cleared his throat. Ahem. Then hurry. The shopkeeper scurried away into the back of the store. Right away, the sun shone over a large traditional estate with a red-tiled roof. Director Kim stared at the building with his mouth open. What? This is the house we're gonna live in? Eunhyun adjusted his new traditional robes. Yes. From today onward, I'll teach you the language of this place. Director Kim laughed and patted him on the back. Haha, thanks, Manager Seo. Eunhyun thought to himself. I made it seem like there's no problem. But after bribing some guys for identity plaques and buying the land and house, we only have 1 silver ingot left now. I guess it's because we're in the capital, but everything is so expensive here. Director Kim noticed the jagged red scars covering Eunhyun's back. He spoke with a soft voice. Hey, since we're in a whole new place now, why don't I just call you by name? Eunhyun looked over his shoulder. Okay, that's fine, Director. Director Kim smiled warmly. Thanks, Seo Eunhyun. The full moon hung over the quiet house at night. A small oil lamp flickered on the table inside. Eunhyun thought to himself. The reason I was able to get all this money was because I sold those herbs. We won't have a source of income if we run out of herbs, so we need to figure out a way to bring money in. Director Kim looked at the maps and routes on the table. I wonder how. How about we use the silver we'll get from selling the rest of this to start a business? Eunhyun thought to himself. With all the money we can get from this, as well as his skill set from having been a director in a mid-sized company, we should be able to make a living. But that's not enough. Since I've regressed, why don't I dream bigger? Director Kim Young-hoon is a martial genius. After reading some third-rate martial arts books sold on the streets, he became a martial master in just a few months. Once he learned the more advanced techniques, he became one of the most powerful martial artists in the Jianghu. But what if he were to learn advanced martial arts from the start? I might be able to shift forward the birth of the greatest swordsman in the Jianghu by at least 30 years. Then I'm going to benefit as much as I can while working for him. Eunhyun spoke with a determined voice. Director, this is Murum, a world of martial arts. Who knows when the gangs of the Jianghu might come for us if we set up a business? Shouldn't we at least learn a bit of self-defense? Director Kim looked startled. Martial arts? But they don't teach people outside the sects their martial arts. How will we learn? Eunhyun thought to himself. As a well-known Murum novel nerd, I knew he'd be interested. In this city, there are 7 famous sects. Among those, the demon-slaying sect, self-binding temple, suppressing birdhouse, and the 7 mysteries sect are on the orthodox side of the Jianghu. Whereas the Wolf Fang Gang, the Dark Knight Association, and the Dragon Fighting Stronghold are considered unorthodox. The people call them the 4 stars and the 3 demons. The demon-slaying sect mainly learns sword and blade techniques. The self-binding temple is a Buddhist sect, while the suppressing birdhouse is like the Hao sect. They treat intel. The 7 mysteries sect has a very long history. They learn all kinds of martial arts. On the other hand, there isn't much information known about the 3 demons. It is said that they are proficient in stealth techniques and sorcery. They do a lot of illegal things. Director Kim looked excited. Which sect do you like the best? Eunhyun smiled. The demon-slaying sect, of course. A martial artist should wield a sword, and a man should learn blade techniques. He thought to himself. Fitting for the man who was called the best swordsman in my past life. Director Kim tilted his head. But how do you know all this? Eunhyun laughed. Haha, I was eavesdropping on some martial artists talking earlier. 3 months passed by. The sun beat down on the massive gates of the demon-slaying sect. A guard blocked the entrance with his spear. Stop. What brings you here? Eunhyun gestured toward Director Kim. He's my older brother. We heard about how famous the demon-slaying sect is and came here wishing to learn martial arts. A large, muscular master with a bald head stepped forward and crossed his arms. I'm sorry, but learning martial arts at his age will be difficult. Eunhyun held out a silver coin. Haha, won't you at least let us talk to someone of a higher status? Even just simple self-defense would do. The scene shifted to a grand hall inside the sect. The master sat at a table. So you want to learn martial arts for self-defense? Eunhyun placed a black chest on the table and opened the lid, revealing rows of glowing silver ingots. Yes, The best one there is, please. The master's eyes widened as he saw the wealth. I suppose you could join as an external disciple. However, we don't give special treatment to those who join with donations. In addition, we'll only accept one of you. The master closed the chest with a loud snap and walked away. Then come outside later to where all the external disciples are gathered. Director Kim looked at the floor in shock. All that money was worth one yellow bamboo root, and that's all they're willing to do for us? What? Are you ripping us? Seo Eunhyun cut him off. I thank you. My brother will be the one learning. The master disappeared into the building. Director Kim placed a hand on Eunhyun's shoulder. Eunhyun, what's the use if only I will learn martial arts? I would have chosen a different group had I known they'd be so expensive. Eunhyun gave him a reassuring look. Don't sweat it. It's not like I've ever been good at sports anyways. I'll just set up a business with the remaining money and support you. Just focus on learning martial arts. Director Kim sighed. Well, I'll try my best, but I'm old. I don't know if I'll be able to really do much. Eunhyun nodded. Believe in yourself. I'm sure you can do it. Director Kim looked down. Thanks. 7 months went by. A large crowd gathered at the training grounds for a competition. The sect leader gripped the arm of his chair so hard the wood splintered. What? What kind of... Some outsider from nowhere defeated all my beloved disciples. A dozen disciples lay face down in the dirt, their swords scattered around them. The demon-slaying sect was in an uproar. To master a martial art meant to understand the true meaning that the martial arts held and physically attuning to it. A third-rate warrior who understood the meaning of a martial art could become a second-rate if they merged it into their own understanding. Eunhyun swung his heavy blade and struck a disciple across the face. Another disciple leapt into the air with a sword. You damned outsider. In order to advance from there, you needed more than double the amount of understanding compared to before, and equally more time and effort. But sometimes, people with enough talent seem to laugh at typical levels of understanding and speed through many stages at once. The demon-slaying sect was a sect full of such talented martial artists. The great sect of Seo Eunhyun City. However, an outsider had come to defeat the direct disciples of that great sect. Within 7 months, Director Kim Eunhyun became a first-rate warrior who had completely mastered the absolute dragon saber technique of the demon-slaying sect. The sect leader gritted his teeth and gripped his chair. To reach first-rate with just half a year of learning martial arts, the level of first-rate is a stage only attainable with the collaborative efforts of many skilled martial artists. On top of that, he is an outsider learning in our sect. To others, it would seem that our tradition has kneeled to that one man. Capture him now. The sect descended into chaos within 7 months because an outsider gained the skills befitting an elder of a sect. Eunhyun practiced his saber forms in his quarters. He was imprisoned in his quarters, suspected of being a spy of another sect. Eunhyun sat at a table and rubbed his head. However, I don't know why I was also considered a suspect when I don't know martial arts. I got arrested while I was at the market. Aren't you worried, Director? Eunhyun continued his practice swings. Haha. About what? Eunhyun looked at the floor. About them suspecting you as a spy. In martial arts novels, they typically destroy your chi core or even cut off your chi flow. Eunhyun stopped his blade mid-swing. That's true, but for some reason, I think I'm approaching the next wall. And if I cross it, I think I can advance to the next stage. Eunhyun blinked in surprise. He thought to himself, what a monster. It hasn't been long since he's become a first-rate martial artist, and now he's already nearing the next stage? Martial peak awaits after first-rate. That level is what most sect leaders of great sects or elders are at. In Yongguo, they are known as absolute masters, and there are only about 1,000 of them in the whole nation. The martial arts world never mentions the stage after that, so martial peak is essentially the last stage you can attain by learning martial arts. My assumptions were wrong. At this rate, the birth of the greatest swordsman in the world will be sped up by 40 years, not 30. 7 days later, Eunhyun sat in a meditative posture as glowing blue lotuses floated around him. He exhaled a steady stream of blue mist. Who? Eunhyun watched in awe. That's the flower of chi that only appears to peak martial artists. 3 flowers gather at the summit. Eunhyun opened his eyes as a blue aura surged around him. I've crossed the barrier. I'm not so scared of the demon-slaying sect leader anymore. Eunhyun smiled. Wow, your talent far exceeds my imagination. Eunhyun stood up and gripped his sword. I'm also impressed by myself. I never knew I had such talent. Maybe this was why I always loved martial arts novels as a kid. Heavy footsteps approached the room. Several disciples arrived with a scroll. Hear ye, Eunhyun and his comrade. We have orders from the sect leader to destroy the chi core of the spy who dared to steal the martial arts of the demon-slaying sect. Eunhyun looked at them calmly. Ho! Eunhyun raised his hands. I said I wasn't a spy. We were just The lead disciple shouted. Silence. We even heard the two of you speaking in a code-like language. Restrain them. Eunhyun grabbed the man's wrist and pulled him close. The disciple screamed in agony. Kua. Eunhyun sighed. Phew. This was my first sect. Another bald disciple swung his blade with rage. How dare you? Eunhyun moved like a blur, slashing through several enemies at once. Blood sprayed across the room as the disciples collapsed. The remaining men fled in terror. Shit! It is a peak-level martial artist. Run! Inform the sect leader. Eunhyun watched them go and sheathed his sword. Eunhyun, I intend to visit other sects and train. What will you do? Eunhyun wiped blood from his face. I will accompany you. How about we go to the acclaimed unorthodox sect, the dragon fighting stronghold? Eunhyun smiled. Ha ha ha. Alright, go ahead. Let's meet there. I will end the pursuit of the demon-slaying sect's elders and leader. Eunhyun climbed a steep mountain path toward the clouds. Eunhyun stood on a jagged rock at the summit, his sword stained with blood. Ho ho. Eunhyun, what took you so long? Eunhyun panted as he reached the top. Haha, you're just too fast, director. He looked at the blood on the blade. He thought to himself, he used to call me Manager Seo until recently. Even if it was to survive, this world changes us into something else. It would be great if we could return. Not to this martial arts world, but to everyday life on Earth. If I were to regress, I wish I could just return to Earth. It can't be helped. Now that we're here, we need to do what we can. After being betrayed by the demon-slaying sect, Director Kim took over the dragon-fighting stronghold. 2 years after that, he toured each region of Yangguo to defeat various sects. And in the 3rd year, he finally managed to destroy the emblems of every sect. He was known as the greatest martial artist under the heavens, and he used that fame to unite the sects, forming the Martial Alliance. 7 years later, the Alliance Palace stood tall amidst the green trees. Director Kim and I were as close as brothers, ignoring the gap in our ages. He created a martial art specifically suited for me. Eunhyun handed over a blue book. This is the Severing Mountain Sword. I named it that hoping you'd inherit its meaning of will that would even cut down mountains. If you master the Severing Mountain Sword, I know you'll be able to reach Martial Peak. Eunhyun opened the book. He thought to himself. Not only that, the Dragon Vein Chi method that was created alongside it. This is true first-rate martial arts, different from any second or third-rate martial arts. If there was a problem, Eunhyun struck Eunhyun with a wooden staff, sending him tumbling onto his back. Eunhyun groaned. Ow! Eunhyun sighed as he looked down. But Eunhyun, you really have no talent. Eunhyun clutched his head in frustration. He thought to himself, my talent was absolutely terrible. Even though the best martial artist under the heavens created a martial arts suited for me and taught me one-on-one. I barely made it to 3rd rate after an entire year. He gripped the wooden sword with trembling hands. I guess it can't be helped. I do have some talent in medicine at least. People are talented in different areas. One day after the decade had passed, Eunhyun stood outside a set of double doors. I witnessed it. Eunhyun sat in a meditative state inside the room as a massive whirlpool of blue energy swirled around him. The level I'd only heard of in legends. 5 energies converged to the origin. Eunhyun's face contorted as the energy surged into him. He let out a powerful roar. Eunhyun stared in shock as the smoke cleared. Eunhyun? That's... Eunhyun stood up, his body completely transformed into a youthful and muscular physique. He laughed. Ha ha ha, Eunhyun, what has you so surprised? Eunhyun thought to himself. Skeletal restructuring. Eunhyun looked at his friend with wide eyes. You look younger than I do. Eunhyun laughed heartily as a surge of energy crackled around his muscular frame. Ha ha ha, is that so? I feel so full of life, I could do anything. Eunhyun smiled as he leaned against the doorway. Ha ha, the world would be shocked at your skeletal restructuring. Eunhyun sat down on the floor and sighed. Indeed. Anyways, I need to hand the Martial Alliance over to a successor soon. Does nobody fit the bill? The Martial Alliance leader must have at least some skill in martial arts, but not a single one understands martial arts properly. Eunhyun walked over and sat across from him. Hey, you're the extraordinary one here. There's no genius in the world like you. Eunhyun watched the trainees through the open window as they shouted in unison. Is that what it is? Even so, there's simply nobody who is worthy. 15 years passed. The sun shone over the massive compound of the Martial Alliance. Eunhyun held a calligraphy brush over a piece of parchment. He thought to himself, it's been 35 years since I started my life on the ascension path. I'm already in my mid-60s. What is Eunhyun Hung doing? After a single year since his skeletal restructuring, he passed the position of alliance leader to his successor and left. I wish to retire with him, but to manage order within the alliance, I had no choice but to stay as the strategist of the alliance until now. He said he wished to travel around Yangguo more. Maybe it's because of that, but he didn't come to my retirement ceremony. Eunhyun walked through the quiet gardens of his new estate. Phew, it's a little too quiet. I bought this manor with my retirement funds, but it's too big to live in alone. A rustle came from the nearby bushes. Eunhyun turned around in a panic. Who's there? A man in tattered black robes stumbled out and fell to his knees. Eunhyun rushed forward to help him. Why, Young-hoon, what has happened to you? Where have you been instead of coming to my retirement ceremony? Young-hoon collapsed onto the grass, panting heavily. Just what happened, Young-hoon? Young-hoon looked up with a weak smile. Eunhyun, I truly believe I was blessed with a gift in martial arts. Eunhyun knelt beside him. That's correct. If you aren't a genius, who would be? Young-hoon stared at the sky. You're right. I'm a genius in martial arts. Among those in Yangguo, no, among any ordinary mortal, nobody is capable of matching my martial talent. Eunhyun chuckled softly. Ordinary mortal? Ho ho, as if you yourself are ordinary? Everyone knows you are the strongest man underneath the heavens. Young-hoon's expression turned grim. I fought a cultivator. Eunhyun's eyes widened in shock. Young-hoon gripped the grass. You remember them, don't you? From 35 years ago, those flying monsters who kidnapped our co-workers. Eunhyun stared at him in silence. Young-hoon closed his eyes. Ah, cultivators. They don't reveal themselves easily, but they lurk within the shadows of Yangguo's royal palace, manipulating the entire country. Ever since the alliance was formed, as our influence in Yangguo grew, they began to direct their influence onto us. Young-hoon had problems with that, but as going against their word would mean opposing the nation itself, he had no choice but to follow orders for the sake of protecting the martial alliance. Because of that, Young-hoon gave up the position of alliance leader. He wanted to duel them as an individual by scouring Yangguo alone. Those cultivators were truly difficult to find. Even when I did locate one, they'd ignore me, saying that mortals weren't worth fighting, and used illusions or simply flew to leave, making it difficult to even fight them. But 5 years ago, I was finally able to duel a cultivator. Eunhyun leaned in. Did you win? Young-hoon nodded slowly. I did. Phew, if you had done that while you were the alliance leader, haha, you would have caused me a lot of trouble. Young-hoon looked at his hand. I put my life on the line to fight the cultivator who reached the chi building stage, and I barely managed to make a small cut on his fingertip. Eunhyun gasped. Young-hoon continued. That cultivator said that even a single scratch would count as his loss, so I technically did win. Eunhyun swallowed hard. So is that cultivator of the chi building stage like one of the 10 strongest cultivators, or? Young-hoon looked him in the eye. No, he told me chi building was the second to lowest stage in the world of cultivation. Using the standard of a martial artist, it's akin to being a second-rate. Eunhyun trembled. What nonsense, he thought to himself. In my previous life and this one, I knew cultivators were ridiculous beings, but Young-hoon's martial arts undoubtedly reached the sky. He can truly walk atop nothing and utilize martial arts while suspended in air, and he's capable of cutting through entire buildings or steel as if they were tofu. But such a genius barely nipped the finger of a bottom-rate cultivator? Young-hoon looked at the ground. I was a frog in the well. We cannot face the cultivators. They are living natural disasters. Eunhyun watched him silently. Young-hoon raised a bandaged hand. Even so, today, I managed to cut off his hand. Eunhyun's voice filled with hope. So your martial arts managed to Serpa? Young-hoon shook his head. No, he placed some paper talisman on himself, and his hand grew back. I think this is the limit to my martial arts. Eunhyun looked worried. What do you mean? Young-hoon stood up as a swirling purple mist began to surround him. I'm here to say goodbye to you today. He said he held my willpower in high regard, and that he was willing to accept me into his cultivation sect. I'll probably start from the bottom up there. Eunhyun reached out a hand. But to become a cultivator means to surpass mortals. Isn't it impossible without a spiritual root? Young-hoon looked at the rift. For a regular mortal, the stage of 5 energies converging to the origin is equivalent to the 5-element spiritual root the cultivators are naturally born with. In order to gain the trait that cultivators are born with, mortals like us must use our entire lives to even manifest that basic quality. I will now go. I must aim for a higher stage. Young-hoon handed a heavy scroll to Eunhyun. This book is my last gift to you. Stay safe. The purple energy swallowed him whole. Eunhyun shouted. Young-hoon hung? He looked down at the scroll titled Record of Transcending Cultivation and Exhausting Martial Arts. He thought to himself. A record of attempting to use martial arts to surpass cultivation. Young-hoon, where are you going without me? Time passed as the seasons changed. The winter wind howled through the city. An old Eunhyun lay in a grand bed, coughing up blood. How cruel. It has been 50 years since I came to this world, and here I lay dying to a common cold, just like my previous life. He thought to himself, fate. No matter how hard a human tries, they cannot escape fate. In the end, all that's changed is my house and bed. I ultimately die on the same day. I lived my life to its limits, because I didn't want to experience the same regret in my past life. I was so busy I hadn't even thought of marriage. Thanks to that, I was able to unite the Yangguo martial sects, and experience plenty of the fame and wealth the mortal world could offer. But what is this sense of emptiness? If we had struggled harder, could Eunhyun Hung and I have reached the sky? He coughed more blood into his hand. My body quakes in this sense of powerlessness. What a disappointment. And that marked the end of my second regression. Eunhyun opened his eyes. He realized he was back in that same forest, the ascension path. His body felt young and brimming with energy. He thought to himself, so regression isn't just a one-time thing. Eunhyun lunged forward with his hand raised high. He yelled at the top of his lungs. Hey, Deputy Manager Seo. You motherfucker. Eunhyun leaned his body back and dodged the strike with ease. Eunhyun gasped in surprise. You dodged it? Eunhyun stood up and brushed the dirt off his clothes. He thought to himself, a new body full of energy and a new opportunity is undoubtedly a good thing. Though, what about the things I had built up for the past 50 years? Eunhyun panted as sweat poured down his face. Hey, you bastard! You almost got us all killed, and now you have the nerve to dodge? Eunhyun stared at him with cold eyes. He thought to himself, regression, is this really a good thing? No, it's not. This is a curse, one that denies me the meaning of life. Sure, a couple regressions may be a thankful opportunity. But if this were to go on forever? A vision of a skeletal man trapped inside a giant spinning metal wheel appeared in his mind. He thought to himself, I'd be trapped in fate's wheel, forced to wallow in the suffering of life until the end of time. Moreover, I can't meet the people I knew in my previous life again. A memory of himself and Eunhyun standing before a massive group of disciples flashed by. He thought to himself, the people in front of me now are simply beings that have the same appearance as the people I knew from my past life. The Eunhyun who I thought of as my own brother no longer exists in this world. Director Kim stepped between them and held Eunhyun back. Section Chief Jaeon, that's enough. Eunhyun continued to huff with rage. Eunhyun spoke with a flat and calm voice. Calm down, Section Chief Jaeon. What help would being angry do here? Eunhyun pointed a finger at him. What? You shameless motherfucker? Eunhyun stepped closer to the man. In the first place, you were on driving duty today. I warned you before you forced me to drive that I wasn't able to sleep last night because of the work you had already offloaded on me. How would I have even been able to dodge an incoming avalanche on a narrow road? Stop pointing fingers, and let's think about what we need to do. Eunhyun looked away and remained silent. Eunhyun turned toward Director Kim. Director Kim. I'll search for a place where we can stay before the sun sets. Everyone else, please look for the car or a way out of this forest. When sun sets, I'll light a fire, so come on over to it. Eunhyun walked away into the thick trees. He thought to himself, is there even a point to making bonds with these people? I'll be alone by myself in the end. A bright full moon hung over the dark canopy of the forest. The group lay around a small campfire, fast asleep. Eunhyun sat up and looked at the dancing flames. He thought to himself, I fear the unending regression of time to come. Infinite regression. This ability must be removed. Would it disappear if I somehow returned to Earth? Seeing how I always regress back to this moment on the ascension path. But, how do I go home? He recalled the image of a crazy old sage laughing with wide eyes. He thought to himself, that's right, there's the ascension gate. When the ascension gate opens, nearby spaces destabilize, so ordinary humans could have been caught up in spatial storms. That must be related to why we fell into this world. Maybe we can return to our original world using it? First, that means I must grow stronger. He clenched his fist tightly. As an ordinary mortal, I can't accomplish anything. I need to become a cultivator like Eunhyun and cultivate. Once I gain a longer lifespan by becoming a cultivator, I'll be able to research the ascension gate sufficiently. I will become a cultivator and go to the ascension gate. Eunhyun walked through the morning forest and pulled a massive yellow bamboo root from the soil. He began to eat the plant with a determined look. He thought to himself, strong chi quakes in my core. I didn't know heart methods in my previous life, so eating these yellow bamboo roots wouldn't have done anything. But if I use the dragon vein chi method that Eunhyun made for me, I can break through my blocked chi passageways. He sat in a meditative pose as a red light glowed within his chest. The energy surged through his heart and veins. He panted and wiped sweat from his face. It's not easy to cure a body soaked in preservatives from fast food and stress. He used a sharp rock to shave a long wooden branch into the shape of a sword. He held it up and tested the weight. That should do it. Eunhyun performed a series of swift slashes and thrusts with the wooden stick. He thought to himself, in my past life, I was just an average second-rate martial artist, but since I wasn't practicing near the end of my life, my skills have dulled. Of course, severing mountain sword, he swung the stick with incredible force. A massive gust of wind followed the strike and sliced clean through the trunk of a giant tree. He thought to himself, I have it all in my head, so growing skills is just a matter of time. Director Kim walked up from behind and stared at the cut tree. Deputy Manager Seo, what was that just now? How did you slash a tree with a wooden stick? Just what is that strength? Eunhyun leaned against the cut tree trunk. He thought to himself, now, this is the man who will instruct me to become a cultivator. He spoke with a smile. Do you want to try learning this technique, Director Kim? Director Kim's face lit up with excitement. Oh, can I really? A deep and gravelly laugh rumbled through the clearing. A massive purple claw slammed into the dirt and leaves. The giant fox emerged from the shadows and licked its sharp fangs. The creature's red eyes glowed with malice. Filthy humans, you dare play around in front of the master of this forest? Director Kim trembled and let out a small gasp. Eunhyun stared at the monster. He thought to himself, yeah, I forgot about him. The blood splattered against the leaves. The fox's teeth crushed down on bone. Eunhyun pressed his fingers against his chest. He thought to himself, all I can do now is to apply pressure to my nerves to ease the pain as the fox bites away at my arm. I am weak, in my first life and in my second. I am weak. The third regression began. He thought to himself, you want to know what happened in my second life? In my previous life, I vowed to attain the level of 5 energies converge to the origin and become a cultivator. But despite learning under the best master for over 100 years, I barely managed to make it to becoming a first-rate martial artist. My talent is worthless compared to that of the people here. Despite that, he let out a piercing scream. The co-workers watched in terror as they cried out. Manager Seo, Eunhyun panted as he gripped his bloody stump. He thought to himself, regardless of whether it takes a millennia or 10 times that, I won't give up. The fox licked the blood from its lips. A human who knows their manners. Offering up a sacrifice of their own accord. Why don't we have a taste? Eunhyun looked at the beast with a cold gaze. I'll give you my arm anytime until the day I surpass your strength. The fox leapt into the air and left the clearing. Eunhyun stood alone in the woods and swung a wooden branch. Without regard for my coworkers, I continued to swing my sword alone in the forest. Aside from when the cultivators arrived to heal my arm and kidnap my coworkers, I swung my sword without food or rest. He stopped on the 4th day and pressed his hands together in a respectful gesture. The Sea Dragon King descended from the sky, carrying the unconscious Deputy Manager O. The immortal spoke with a mocking tone. A lowly mortal dares to ask the Sea Dragon King a question. What is it? Eunhyun kept his head bowed. I believe that you intend to take our deputy manager, oh hi Seo. However, she's a mortal who lacks a spiritual root, and regular mortals can only live for up to 100 years at most. Just what use do you even have for her? Seo Wol smiled as he held the woman. Haha, you seem quite informed about cultivators for a mortal, but you need not worry. Once she accepts my blood, she will awaken to a spiritual root befitting her talents. Eunhyun looked up. If so, could you also give us the opportunity? She and I are from the same lands. We might also have some special powers you could be interested in. The immortal's smile widened. Fufu, listen, I'll warn you for your own sake. A sudden wave of pressure struck Eunhyun's chest. He groaned and clutched his heart. But try to avoid making demands to high-ranked cultivators like me. We've lived through dozens of millennia, and have seen and learned countless things you could not even dare to comprehend. As I am one of the kinder ones, I'll forgive you, but certain freakish cultivators would be more than willing to crush you like insects for making eye contact. The blue dragon roared and flew into the lightning-filled sky. The next morning, the old sage Hyogwak appeared before the remaining survivors. Great cultivator, our co-worker, Manager Kim Yeon, is a mortal without a spiritual root. How is she able to become your disciple? The old man laughed and held up a glowing blue pill. Ki-hue-hue. This is a priceless pill that awakens one to their spiritual senses. A mortal can gain the opportunity to become a cultivator if they consume this. Eunhyun watched from the ground. He thought to himself, so there are other ways to become a cultivator. The sage reached for the woman's face. Well, it is also possible for mortals to train in martial arts and gain the 5-element spiritual root, but that path takes far too long and results in a very mediocre outcome. This is the best way. Now, I have no business with you two. Be gone. He opened a swirling golden portal and cast them inside. Director Kim screamed. Eunhyun woke up hanging from a tree branch. He thought to himself, this is the southwest of Yongguo. He thought to himself, My previous life was just spent like my second one, where Eunhyun and I traveled throughout Yongguo. After spending almost 100 years traveling Yongguo, I know every place by the back of my hand. He shook the man's shoulder. Director, wake up. The sun shone brightly over the forest. He thought to himself. I woke up Director Kim and brought him to the nearest city, and then I explained the situation to him. He seemed quite confused, but he soon appeared to accept this new reality. We soon arrived in Hobuk City and sold the herbs of the Ascension Path to buy a small house. Eunhyun stood in the courtyard with a training manual. He thought to himself. I taught him the language as well as the Severing Mountain Blade, which he had created himself in my second regression by modifying the Severing Mountain Sword in order to make it better suit the weapon he used. Eunhyun crossed his arms and looked unmotivated. Director Kim sat in a meditative pose as a massive swirl of blue energy gathered around him. He thought to himself. He reached the level of 3 flowers within 3 months of learning martial arts, while someone like me can spend 2 whole lifetimes just training and barely reach first rate. Director Kim stood up and flexed his muscles. He laughed. Ha ha, I think I could beat you now, Manager Seo. Eunhyun gave a small smirk. He thought to himself. This man is not the same Eunhyun that I considered to be my own brother in my previous life. He is mentally several times younger than me. Director Kim cheered and raised his fists. I feel full of strength. Eunhyun watched him. He thought to himself. In terms of mental age, I'd be as old as Director Kim's grandfather. I shouldn't accompany him in this life. Eunhyun handed a book to the director. Director, from now on, we should begin to live separately. Director Kim looked at him in shock. What? What do you mean, Deputy Manager Seo? Seo Eunhyun, did I do something wrong? What is the reason for this? Eunhyun looked him in the eye. The reason, he thought to himself. In my first regression, Eunhyun became the Martial Alliance leader but despaired after losing to the Cultivators. The second regression wasn't much different. He created the record of gazing cultivation and exceeding martial arts by improving upon the record of transcending cultivation and the exhausting martial arts and fought cultivators, but he was unable to surpass stronger cultivators and gave up, leaving the path of martial arts and disappearing to become a cultivator. The same thing will happen in this life. A vision of Eunhyun crying in despair appeared. He thought to himself. And I no longer wish to witness Eunhyun's face filled with despair. I want to tour the lands and improve my own skills. Director Kim looked worried. But how will I live on my own without you? Eunhyun gestured toward the room. Your martial arts skills should be more than enough to go off of. I've taught you how to communicate, write, and fight. You're a martial artist at the martial peak level, so you no longer need to worry. Director Kim scratched his head. But this means I must part with someone who shares my homeland once again. Eunhyun smiled. Hey. If so, let's promise to meet on this day in this very house every 2 years. Director Kim nodded. Eunhyun walked away from the house. After convincing Director Kim, I left the house. Eunhyun arrived at the Hall of 8 Respects. A muscular guard in red robes raised a massive polearm to block his path. Halt! What brings you to the Hall of 8 Respects? Eunhyun pressed his hands together in a formal salute. I've come to request a duel. The guard threw back his head and laughed. Ah ha ha ha! One cannot just simply barge into the Hall of 8 Respects and... Eunhyun moved forward in a blur. He struck the guard's weapon with his hand. The metal blade snapped and flew through the air. The guard's eyes widened in terror. Eunhyun looked at him with a cold, determined gaze. He thought to himself, I'll grow stronger. Do I still seem like a nobody? I'll do whatever it takes. Eunhyun arrived at the entrance of a massive pagoda complex. A female disciple in purple robes gestured for him to follow. Come on in. The sect leader is waiting for you. The two of them walked through the long wooden corridor. Eunhyun stepped out onto a large training courtyard where dozens of disciples in yellow robes watched from the balconies. The sect leader stroked his goatee with a smile. Oh ho, I was wondering who our guest might be when I heard a first-rate martial artist was here, but to think it would be such a young lad. Eunhyun pressed his hands together in a respectful salute. I, Seo Eunhyun, greet the Hall of 8 Respects sect leader. The man chuckled. Ho ho, your chi is undoubtedly formidable. Eunhyun looked him in the eye. As does yours, sect leader. Please bestow upon this inexperienced fellow some of your teachings. The sect leader unsheathed a metal 9-section staff. Then I shall make the first move. The sect leader lunged forward and swung his segmented staff through the air. Eunhyun raised his sword and deflected the strike with a sharp metallic clash. The disciples watched in shock. He deflected the sect leader's 9-chuck with his sword. The sect leader stepped back and gripped his weapon. Seeing your reaction time, you've reached the level of becoming one with the sword. You're at the late stage of first rate. You have also completely merged your martial arts with your weapon as well. Eunhyun held his blade steady. I've learned much from that single move. The sect leader smiled warmly. Oh ho, To be at the same level as me at such a young age, you really are a genius. Eunhyun looked at the ground. He thought to himself, a genius. That's hardly a compliment to me. I know it may seem impressive that I've reached a level of prowess that would take others decades to reach in my late 20s. Thank you for praising my yet sufficient skills, but I am just one of many talentless fools commonly found in the world. The sky never gave me such talent. But despite my lack of talent, I was able to develop a level of martial prowess equivalent to those of geniuses. Regression is an opportunity for me. I decided to act as a genius for now. Eunhyun raised his sword and prepared his stance. I will use sword energy from here on out. The sect leader nodded. Go ahead. I, too, will take things seriously. Eunhyun lunged forward with a blue aura surrounding his blade. Mountain severing sword first form, transcending peaks. The sect leader moved to block the attack. Eunhyun followed with a rapid flurry of strikes. Second form, entering mountain. Third form, ascending vein. The metal clashed repeatedly as sparks flew. The sect leader panted as he struggled to keep up with the onslaught. He thought to himself, what is this monstrous sword art? I can't get through it at all. The sect leader grunted as a heavy strike pushed him back across the dirt. Eunhyun continued his assault without pausing. Severing mountain sword 7th form, deep mountain. The blade moved in a blur of blue light. A disciple watched from the balcony with wide eyes. I am possible. The sect leader is. His sword is becoming faster as he goes through the arts forms. Eunhyun gathered his energy for a final blow. 11th form, cliff edge. Another disciple gripped the wooden railing. It is not just speed. His sword is gaining ridiculous amounts of force. The two warriors collided in a massive explosion of energy. Eunhyun's eyes glowed with intensity. I'll end things now. 12th form, 7 lights emerging peak. A blinding flash of white light filled the courtyard as the stone floor cracked. The sect leader's staff shattered into small pieces. The man fell to his knees as blood trickled down his forehead. RGH. I have lost. Eunhyun pressed his hands together in a salute. Thank you for the opportunity. He walked out of the silent arena and onto the busy streets of the city. He thought to himself, there's no backlash. The Hall of 8 Respects is an orthodox sect well known for following a strict moral code. I should visit the unorthodox sects next time. With this tour of travels, I will reach the martial peak in this life. Eunhyun toured 4 more medium-sized sects in Seo City. He lost to the Unryu sect and the Huidong sect, but was victorious at the Geju sect and the Yugul sect. He eventually arrived at the Hojang sect and defeated their champion. The defeated warrior hit the floor and groaned in pain. Ugh! The Hojang sect leader sat in his chair and laughed. So you are the young first-rate martial artist who was recently challenging duels around Seo City. I've seen your skills well, ho. Eunhyun bowed his head slightly. I was able to learn much as well. He turned to leave the room. 10 scarred and muscular elders suddenly surrounded Eunhyun with their weapons drawn. The sect leader stood up and looked at him with a devious grin. Now, it's time to face off against 10 of our elders. Are you ready? Eunhyun looked at the group in confusion. Huh? Is this how unorthodox sects exact revenge? I thought the duel ended with my victory. I've never even heard of a consecutive duels, especially not one where the challenger would fight 10-on-1. The old man's smile widened. Really? You heard of it now, haven't you? Eunhyun gripped the hilt of his sword. He thought to himself, this old geezer, if I let your devious ways be known to other sects, the Hojang sect's name will fall to the ground. The sect leader leaned back and laughed. Ha, there's no problem. You will receive a simple scratch while dueling at our sect. Said scratch shall become infected, and you will unfortunately fall to illness. Our sect will have taken great care for you, and the people will believe that despite our best efforts, you unfortunately passed away. The elders stepped forward and brandished their swords. The sect leader looked down at Eunhyun with cold eyes. Ho, a dead man can't possibly refute our words, can he? Eunhyun stared back with a focused gaze. He thought to himself, they're even more crazy than I thought they'd be. The Hojang sect leader sat in the shadows of the hall. He spoke with a mocking tone. If we kill you here, our reputation will remain intact. Eunhyun gave a slight smirk. He thought to himself, right, this one did come here for this after all. He drew his blade with a sharp metallic ring. Then attack. This ridiculous duel is accepted. The elders roared and lunged forward with their weapons raised. Now then, let's get some real fighting experience. The sun set over the horizon, painting the city in deep orange. A group of men sat in a busy tavern, laughing loudly. One man spoke to his friends. That young martial artist, gossip says he went to challenge the Hojang sect. His companion shook his head and sighed. Tisk, what an unfortunate end for such a talented fellow. Indeed, to think he'd challenge an unorthodox sect to a duel. An elder at the table took a sip of his tea. That's just how it is. When one is young, there is this naivete that makes one think, the world will go as desired. Hey, he hastened his death with his own arrogance. The waiter walked past the tables with a tray. The Hojang sect is really only a sect in name. They're practically a group of bandits. He's probably already been buried by now. A blood-stained boot stepped onto the wooden floor. The waiter froze in surprise. Well, come. Eunhyun stood in the entrance, his clothes torn and soaked in deep red blood. He panted heavily. One bowl of noodles, please. The waiter bowed quickly. Certainly. Do come in. Eunhyun walked to a table, his steps leaving red marks on the floor. He thought to himself, those crazy fuckers. Death was almost reached. Not only was it 10 against 1, but they even poisoned their weapons. Thank God medicine of the highest level was learned during that time as the Alliance's strategist. If those curing pills and stimulants made beforehand had not been eaten, death would have arrived. He recalled the mad sect leader screaming in a frenzy. Kill him! Whatever it takes! The lackeys of the sect raised their spears and bows and charged in formation. As that geezer's last resort, this one fought like an animal in order to survive. Even so, survival was achieved. The bodies of the disciples lay in a pile in the bloody hall. He thought to himself, the survivors' tendons were cut to cripple them for life, so they won't be able to come after this one for revenge. Eunhyun gripped his chopsticks with a trembling, bloodied hand. Anyways, overdosing on stimulants is making it impossible to relax right now. Phew, sleep will be impossible for the next few days. He placed a coin on the table and stood up. An orthodox sect will be challenged to a duel next. Eunhyun walked out into the night. Immediately after the fight against the Hojang sect, the young martial master ate a single bowl of noodles and proceeded on his journey. That ridiculous feat caused his name to be spread among the masses, as gossip roamed all throughout Seokyung City. Soon, people gave said crazy martial artist a befitting title. Infinite Fighting Spirit, Seo Eunhyun. Eunhyun clashed his sword against an opponent in the dark. He thought to himself, talent is lacking. The goal, the martial peak, is as far as ever. That is why the fight must continue, weaving through life and death to inch ever closer. For a talentless man to break the wall, he must go mad. If talent is lacking, one must embrace insanity. That is the only way a talentless man can catch up to a genius. And so he went through various places within Yongguo and fought several duels a day, whether they were orthodox or unorthodox sects. 5 years passed. A massive explosion of dust and stone rocked the temple stairs. Eunhyun leapt into the air. Severing Mountain Sword 14th form. Chi Mountain, Flowing Heart. His blade glowed with a brilliant blue light. Its chi was like that of a mountain, and its heart was like that of the heavens. Sword chi in the form of silk, something that can only be used by those who have reached the peak. He groaned in pain. Ugh! Even attempting to form it for a moment places a ridiculous burden on this head. But if this is not done, the dream of catching up is impossible. Catching up to, a massive collision of energy filled the air. Eunhyun crashed into a stone wall, shattering the rock behind him. He groaned. Q. All of this sword chi was destroyed in a single strike. Kim Young-hoon walked through the clearing with a calm smile. Ho ho, there were high hopes from hearing about you, but a long way still remains. Infinite Fighting Spirit Seo. Victory belongs to this one this time. The strongest man under the heavens looked down at his friend. Eunhyun struggled to his feet. He thought to himself, he truly has incredible talent. KGH. Indeed. Congratulations. Young-hoon watched him. You've grown even stronger than last year. Skeletal restructuring in 5 years. Eunhyun looked at his trembling hand. What has been done in that time? This one is still a first-rate martial artist. Talent truly brings people to their lowest. Young-hoon looked at the temple. What brought you here? Was there not an agreement on meeting once every 2 years? The man raised a finger. After attaining the 5 energies converging to the origin, and visiting great sects of Yongguo, one thing has been realized. What is it? This one is the strongest man in all of Yongguo. No one can withstand more than a single strike. Eunhyun sighed. HMPH. Young-hoon leaned in. So it was thought, as the strongest man under the heavens, an organization or sect should be created. A seat is offered to you. Eunhyun spoke with a sharp tone. Remaining this way is preferred. He thought to himself. There he goes with his obsession over becoming the alliance leader. If the offer is accepted, this one will end up working to the bone as the vice leader or strategist in this life as well. In order to reach the martial peak, every second is precious. Young-hoon stood in the courtyard. After saying that meeting would be hard after the organization starts, he began trying to convince this one by saying he could help with training through one-on-one lessons. Eunhyun ignored the offer. No matter what offer is made, it will not be taken. Plenty of teachings were received in the past life. He gripped the hilt of his sword. What is needed now is real-life experience. In the past life, Young Hoon Hung said that once the late stages of first rate are reached, as much real combat as possible should be sought. So in this life, the decision was made to merely watch his saga from afar, and continue on a personal endless journey for battle. And so another 20 years passed. The rain fell over the quiet pagoda. Young Hoon stood in the doorway and looked out. You seem quite pale, Seo Eunhyun. Eunhyun stared at the ground with a heavy heart. He thought to himself, the truth has finally been realized. Seo Eunhyun, this talent is truly one forsaken by the heavens. Eunhyun sat in a meditative position in the dim room. His blue sword glowed with a faint light. Young Hoon watched him from behind. The man spoke with a calm voice. Despite training endlessly, you still haven't been able to raise your prowess? Eunhyun stared at his reflection in the cold metal. He thought to himself, my understanding of sword energy now far exceeds that of other first-rate martial artists, yet I am still unable to last more than 3 exchanges against a peak-level martial artist. Young Hoon rubbed his chin and thought, how strange. You have nearly become one with the sword, but you still haven't reached the martial peak? Someone with as much fighting experience as you should easily be able to. Eunhyun gave a weary smile as blood trickled from his nose. He thought to himself, yeah, this is the extent of my talent. Talent forsaken by the heavens. I can only maintain it for half a day as of now. Maybe if I become able to maintain sword energy for an entire day, I will be able to find a path. Young Hoon looked at him with a serious expression. I wish you the best. The man handed a heavy red book to Eunhyun. Here, this is the insight I gained from fighting a core formation stage cultivator. I tried to buy as much time for myself by withstanding his moves, and I managed to escape successfully. Eunhyun opened the thick volume. He thought to himself, it is as thick as the entirety of Record of Gazing Cultivation and Exceeding Martial Arts, the advanced version of Record of Transcending Cultivation and Exhausting Martial Arts. The insight needed to merely escape from a core formation stage cultivator was this great? Young Hoon turned toward the stormy window. They are living natural disasters. Obviously, you need a deep understanding in order to escape from the wrath of nature. Eunhyun placed the book on a shelf among many others. I see. I will preserve it and pass it down to the next generation. Thank you, Young Hoon. Young Hoon walked to the door. Now, I will seek to find a core formation stage cultivator again. I pray that we meet each other again alive. Oh, and here is a hint to reaching the martial peak. Try to take in every single piece of spatial information in your mind at all times. Eunhyun blinked in confusion. Every piece of spatial information? Young Hoon nodded. Yep, you know how you stay aware of your surroundings in order to utilize them during duels or real combat, right? Try to make that, something you would typically only utilize in combat, stay active at all times. Eunhyun stared at him in disbelief. He thought to himself, how would I even? Just maintaining sword energy all day already makes me feel like my head will split open, but now I need to simulate my surroundings at all times? Is he sure my head won't explode? No, there must be a reason the strongest martial artist under the heavens would assign me such a task. From that day forth, I began to keep aware of every single piece of information my eyes would give me. Remember the spatial position of every object. The years passed through the changing seasons. Eunhyun walked through a bustling market and then through a dense forest. He panted as he leaned on his sword. He thought to himself, it has been 5 years since I started to maintain sword energy and spatial tracking. I feel dizzy. Being aware of everything that enters my sight is a dizzy feat, and it is not just that. I have started surpassing just visual information and tracking audible information as well. Can I even fight in this state? There are not even any more sects to fight. In the past 30 years, I have traveled through all of Yangguo, visiting various medium to large sects. Now, there is not a single sect left in Yangguo for me to visit. Eunhyun stood over a pile of dead bandits in a forest clearing. He thought to himself, I currently have resorted to capturing bandits and living off of their bounties. I have to fight against enemies that would use any dirty method while I am in such a lightheaded state. Will I be able to survive? I chose this path. Even if I die, I must continue to walk this path. A bandit hiding in the bushes pointed his blade. Big boss, that is the guy. I have finally found you, you bastard. A large man in a leopard skin cape lunged forward. You are dead. Blood sprayed across the leaves as Eunhyun sliced through his attackers. 15 years went by. Eunhyun sat at a wooden table in a dimly lit room. He poured 2 cups of tea. Young Hoon sat across from him with a scarred face. The man spoke with a warm smile. So you survived. Once again, yes. It has been 45 years since I regressed. Eunhyun looked at his tea. He thought to himself, I have now reached a stage where I am proficient at processing and remembering not only with sight and hearing, but also taste, touch, and smell at an advanced level. But that was all. I still haven't been able to become a peak-level martial artist. Still. Eunhyun took a sip of tea. I seem to have a name among cultivators now. They have put a bounty on me. 2 core formation stage cultivators had set a trap and were waiting for me. I barely escaped, but I managed to make a single scratch on one of their cheeks. Eunhyun sighed. I see you have gained great insight again this time. Eunhyun looked down at his bowl. It is nothing like that. It is impossible to defeat a core formation stage cultivator. If I cannot escape, I will end up as a corpse in no time. I have been having some thoughts recently. These 5 energies converging to the origin may be the limit that a martial artist can aim for. I suspect that the author of Record of Gazing Cultivation and Exceeding Martial Arts ended up arriving at a similar conclusion as me. That no matter how hard you train your martial arts, you can never defeat a cultivator. Eunhyun looked at Eunhyun's reflection in his tea. He thought to himself, I see my own self in Kim Eunhyun. While he undoubtedly has talent that was gifted to him by the heavens themselves, I have talent forsaken by the heavens themselves. Eunhyun looked puzzled. But why do I relate to his situation right now so much, when the two of us are polar opposites when it comes to talent? Eunhyun spoke with a heavy voice. I am pretty stumped as to why I am unable to reach the next level. Eunhyun stood up. Would you like me to give you feedback through a duel? We haven't done so in quite some time. Eunhyun gripped his sword. I would like that. The moon hung high over the temple. A massive explosion of energy rocked the courtyard. Eunhyun panted as he stood in a cloud of dust. He thought to himself, shit, just what is the problem? Eunhyun walked toward him. I don't understand. You should have become a peak-level martial artist ages ago. Eunhyun stared in shock. Huh? What does that even mean? Eunhyun rested his hand on his chin. Maybe what you lack is a catalyst. Eunhyun looked at him. A catalyst? Eunhyun stared out at the dark horizon. Yeah, like a strong sense of drive or emotion. An event that might get you to exceed the limits of your concentration and surpass your talent. Eunhyun let out a roar of rage that shook the trees. What the hell do you mean by that? I have done nothing but wield the sword for over 50 years. For my entire life. How much more desperate do you think I can get? I have struggled my entire life, desperately trying to escape being a first-rate martial artist. What do you mean, I lack desperation? I have activated all the chi flows in my body. Hell, I even hold my sword as I sleep and keep my sword energy active. I have reached the point where I am even processing and memorizing every bit of information I experience in my dreams. So why won't you show me the next stage, heavens? Why? Eunhyun collapsed to his knees in the dirt. He thought to himself, I know how it looks for a 70-year-old man to curse the heavens for his fate. Just why? Even though I have only pursued the sword for my entire life, I don't have a single clue as to what the next stage is like. Eunhyun performed a swift strike that left glowing marks on a tree trunk. I created a martial art during our duel that should fill in your weak points. I know this is no proper reassurance for your needs, but I hope learning it will help you calm yourself. Eunhyun watched him leave. He thought to himself, Mountain Lord martial arts and transcending peak steps? Once again, you have disappeared just like that. 5 years later, the sun shone over the quiet city. Eunhyun stood with a long white beard. He thought to himself, it has been 50 years since my regression. I no longer have a lot of days left to live. Eunhyun, have you passed away already? Phew, I guess this is our fate. My talent ends here, and your talent ends there. No matter how hard we mortals struggle, we cannot escape the skies have set for us. Eunhyun suddenly stumbled into the area, his clothes tattered and his mouth coughing up blood. What the hell are you talking about? Eunhyun jumped in surprise. Oh, what? Eunhyun collapsed to one knee and groaned. Kook, uck. Eunhyun rushed to his side. Shit, what the hell have you been up to? You are in a grave state. Let me get my medical tools from my house. Eunhyun grabbed his arm with a bloody hand. A massive explosion of fire and debris erupted from the temple behind them. Eunhyun stared in horror. He thought to himself, what? Weren't both his arms chopped off? Eunhyun pointed a trembling finger toward the sky. Do you see him, Eunhyun? That cultivator is chasing us. This is the price I pay for blowing up the arm of a core formation stage cultivator. I, Kim Eunhyun, have made a core formation stage cultivator take meaningful damage. I have witnessed the stage past the 5 energies converging to the origin, what was thought to be the final stage a martial artist can reach, with my own 2 eyes. Ha. Eunhyun looked at him with wide eyes. What? Eunhyun roared as he unleashed a massive ball of blue energy. He spoke with a maniacal grin. Look, I risked my life and burned away my life forces to get to this point. Eunhyun stared at the swirling orb in disbelief. He thought to himself, that is enhanced chi? Eunhyun laughed as the energy pulsed with power. I was able to burst a core formation cultivator's arm thanks to this. Watch, Eunhyun, This is the result of my life's work training martial arts. The orb flew forward and collided with a large structure. A massive explosion of wood and stone filled the air. Eunhyun watched the debris fall with a shocked expression. Oh, my house. I invested all the money I gathered for 50 years while living as the infinite fighting spirit into this house. Eunhyun stood amidst the smoke, his face covered in blood and his eyes wide with madness. Now, look, I have run far and wide to show you this. Because I decided that I would leave my will to you. Eunhyun watched his friend with a heavy heart. He thought to himself, at the moment, I spaced out and rage filled me, but I calmed myself down and watched his martial arts performance. The place where a 3-story building had been exploded without leaving a trace. It is a good thing I didn't have any servants in the house. Otherwise, hundreds of them would have all died with that one attack. The blade traces I can see and what few remains there are. I see. The ball of enhanced chi just then was a concentration of thousands of blade energies. What unbelievable force. It is stronger than any martial arts he has shown me until now. Eunhyun slumped forward as his strength failed. This is how I was able to burst a core formation cultivator's arm. Before, I had to ambush or assassinate the chi building stage cultivators for a chance, but now I can fight them head on. Eunhyun looked down as the ground gave way beneath them. We are falling. They hit the dirt with a heavy thud. Eunhyun lay on his back, gasping for breath. Please don't forget these techniques. They are my life's realizations. Please pass on my martial arts to future generations. Eunhyun knelt beside him and checked his pulse. I heard you, so stop talking. Your life is at stake here. A man in blue robes stood on a high tree branch, looking down with a cold gaze. Found you, ultimate martial spirit. That is quite a terrible spot to run to. Eunhyun looked up at the cultivator. The immortal pointed toward the ground. Hey, civilian, he is a criminal who has committed unspeakable crimes to the cultivators. Leave him here. Eunhyun stared at the man. Are you here to punish him? Are you his acquaintance? Eunhyun grabbed Eunhyun and sprinted into the woods. Pointless. Did he not hear about us from the ultimate martial spirit? Haha, well, alright. I will think of it as entertainment. Run the best you can. The man unleashed a wave of purple energy. Several pale, rotting figures rose from the ground. Eunhyun looked back in horror. He thought to himself, that is, corpses? Jiangxi. The monsters screeched and chased after them. Eunhyun panted as he carried his friend on his back. He thought to himself, damn it, I am too old for this. Anyway, ultimate martial spirit? Did the cultivators give you that name? How unique. The ultimate martial spirit and the infinite fighting spirit. 2 spirits being chased by the Jiangxi. How strange is that? Eunhyun remained silent. Eunhyun spoke with a desperate voice. Never mind that, you need to stay awake. Please, say something. A zombie leapt at them with claws outstretched. Eunhyun delivered a powerful kick to its chest, sending the creature flying backward. Eunhyun continued his frantic run through the trees. He thought to himself, damn it, you should be the one running with me on your back. I'm gonna die from suffocation. Why did you have to get your arms cut off? The Jiangxi did not give up and continued to chase him. He bit down hard and kept running. Morning went and night passed by. How many times did the sun rise and fall? Eunhyun stood at the edge of a sheer cliff, gasping for air. He thought to himself, damn it, it is so high up. The cultivator in blue walked through the crowd of zombies. Shocking. You, a mere civilian, managed to withstand the Jiangxi for 3 days and nights. However, you cannot run anymore. It is also futile to do so. The ultimate martial spirit is already dead. Eunhyun looked at the lifeless body on his shoulder. I know, I am a physician, after all. The cultivator raised a brow. Then why were you running? I am only interested in the ultimate martial spirit. I don't care about you. You could have just abandoned the corpse and run off. Eunhyun began to laugh weakly. Hoo. The man frowned. You are laughing. Eunhyun gripped his sword hilt. He thought to himself, the severing mountain sword, the dragon vein chi method, the mountain lord martial arts, and the transcending peak steps. I was able to reach this point, despite being void of talent, thanks to Kim Young-hoon's teachings. He is someone from my hometown, as well as my martial mentor. So, Eunhyun drew his blade and pointed it at the immortal. If you want to take my master's head, you will have to take mine first. The cultivator sneered. TCH. No one knows to fear the cultivators. Is it because you just don't know any better, or do you have no fear because you are so old? Alright, I will show you that cultivators have the power to show you pain worse than death. The man raised his hands and summoned 2 massive purple spectral claws. The giant hands lunged forward. Eunhyun braced for impact. He thought to himself, he wasn't going after me. Young-hoon's neck snapped back as purple energy surged through him. Eunhyun stared in shock. The cultivator looked at him with a cruel smile. You parasite. I will make you pay the price of having looked down on a cultivator. Now, ultimate martial spirit, kill your disciple. Eunhyun's corpse gripped his sword as his eyes glowed with a ghostly light. Eunhyun gritted his teeth. You evil bastard! Eunhyun growled as he prepared to strike. Eunhyun's corpse let out a deafening roar. The undead warrior lunged forward with a savage groan. Eunhyun thought to himself, how dare you defile a dead man's legacy like this? The cultivator watched from a distance with a smug grin. Eunhyun swung his blade with mindless ferocity. Eunhyun parried the strikes with his wooden staff. He thought to himself, thankfully, he isn't able to use martial arts. He is merely attacking me using the sheer power the cultivator surged into him. But just that sheer force and speed is so great that it is hard for my old body to withstand. Eunhyun gritted his teeth as the pressure of the blade pushed him back. Shit! Shit! He thought to himself. It is already an incredible disgrace to point my sword at Kim Eunhyun, who is already dead. I am sorry, but if there's nothing else I can do, I should end it as soon as I can. Eunhyun gathered his chi and held his sword steady. Purple energy began to swirl around him. Severing Mountain Sword 21st Form, Heavenly Lake. A memory of the past flashed before his eyes. Young Eunhyun sat in the grass with his mentor. He wondered to himself, the 21st form of the Severing Mountain Sword is called Heavenly Lake. All of the other forms' names are related to some mountain, peak, or valley. Why do you think the 21st form is named after a lake? Eunhyun looked up at the sky. Since Eunhyun Hung created it for me in my past life, perhaps he'd have an answer. Heavenly Lake. It reminds me of the Heavenly Lake atop Mount Baekdu. Mount Baekdu? Haha. Yeah, maybe this world has a lake similar to Mount Baekdu's, you know? Or maybe the name was also created by people from Korea like us. Ha ha ha. Maybe so. The vision faded as the current Eunhyun faced the monster. Heavenly Lake, the lake that reflects the sky itself. He thought to himself. The Heavenly Lake holds the view of the skies within its surface, but its nature remains unchanged. The sky symbolized in the teachings of the Severing Mountain Sword refers to the martial artist I duel with, and the lake, which encompasses the sky's view, refers to my single strike. Eunhyun's blade glowed with a soft light. He absorbed the force of Eunhyun's attack. He thought to himself, Heavenly Lake of the Severing Mountain absorbs all the energy flowing in the opponent's veins into my sword energy for a single moment, and ends up launches the enemy away, whilst their energy gets trapped in my sword. It is a move I can use because I'm a first-rate physician and a master of understanding the 8 chi veins. It is a move only I can perform because this martial art was created specifically for me. Eunhyun looked at the mutated form of his friend. If Eunhyun Hung's corpse remains intact, he may continue to be used as a jiangshi. That is why I mustn't let a single piece of him remain. I will use the energy churning within my sheath to combine all of the Severing Mountain Sword's forms into a single attack. Eunhyun moved like a streak of light. Severing Mountain Sword first form, transcending peaks. He slashed through the air and followed with more strikes. Second form, entering mountain. Third form, ascending vein. Fourth form, flowing ridge. Fifth form, bouldered cliff. Sixth form, strange stone. The blade cut through Eunhyun's chest with a spray of blood. The corpse let out a strangled cry. Eunhyun thought to himself, I'll cut him up completely so that the cultivators may not defile his legacy further by controlling his corpse. The cultivator roared in a rage. You insect! The immortal raised his hand and sent a surge of energy into the body. Eunhyun's corpse swelled with muscle as his eyes turned dark. Kia! Eunhyun stood his ground. He thought to himself, shit, the cultivator has given him even more power and speed. I need to dodge. No. What use is there in dodging? My life will end soon. I'm already as good as dead. I will use this moment to ensure that my master is no longer defiled. The massive fist of the corpse smashed into the ground, creating a crater. Eunhyun centered his chi. Burn it all. The zombie roared. Kuo-oh. Eunhyun felt the weight of his own mortality. I will die. No, but I can't die yet. Just a little more. The area around me, the noises, the smells. The humidity and temperature, the blood that's wrapping around the tip of my tongue. He thought to himself, my brain feels like it'll explode. And I'll let it explode. More. Hua. Until my brain burns to a crisp. A vision of a cracked red void appeared in his mind. Eunhyun's eyes went wide. He thought to himself, my brain, which felt like it'd explode. Instead of accepting the pressure formed from putting my life on the line, it surpassed something. Oh, what's going on? Have I become delusional? This is the vision of a martial artist who has reached the martial peak. Eunhyun looked at the face of the dead Eunhyun. Kim Eunhyun is smiling, talent blessed by the heavens, and talent forsaken by the heavens. We were polar opposites, but the reason we were somehow similar was because we were both ultimately struggling to escape the fate given to us by the heavens. Blood sprayed as the two warriors clashed. There is no genius or dunce. There are only two men who struggled against their fates their whole lives, one dead and another on death's door. Eunhyun's spirit seemed to stand behind his own corpse. Are you going to stop there? Eunhyun lunged forward. Of course not. Or 15th form, layered mountain. A series of massive explosions tore through the cliffside. The sound echoed across the mountains. Yeah, this is the end. The cultivator screamed in fury. Now, even a cultivator won't be able to define his corpse any longer. Eunhyun closed his eyes as the light faded. Please rest in peace, my martial arts master. And so, I finally attained the level of martial arts I had desired for so long, and put an end to this life of continuous struggles. That was my fourth regression. Eunhyun opened his eyes to the familiar lush grass of the forest. He thought to himself, oh, I regressed again. In my past life, I continued to fight until the last moment and I finally attained it. Eunhyun clenched his fist tightly as a wave of power washed over him. He shouted with joy, finally, I have reached the martial peak. I have reached the prowess I have desired my whole life. Myung-hoon lunged forward with a furious yell. Hey, Manager Seo, what the hell are you on about? It is your fault, you crazy fuck. Eunhyun tilted his head back as a glowing red line traced the path of the punch. He thought to himself, I see it. Myung-hoon gritted his teeth in disbelief. You were dodging? Eunhyun dodged another strike with fluid grace. He thought to himself, even with my eyes closed, I can perfectly see where Jaeon Myung-hoon will strike next. I could dodge his attacks with my eyes closed before, but that was based off predicting the trajectory of his future attacks, attributed to my martial arts experience. However, this is different. This isn't a prediction, it is more like foresight. A memory of fallen warriors on a battlefield flashed through his mind. He thought to himself, so this is why no matter how many first-rate martial artists there are, they can never defeat a martial artist who has attained peak level. They can completely see the trajectory and direction of attacks from people weaker than them. How could a first-rate martial artist even stand a chance? Eunhyun's eyes glowed with a brilliant blue light as he stared at Myung-hoon. He thought to himself, this time, I can instinctively sense it. These blue lines lead to the opponent's openings and the best possible trajectories I can attack with. Red lines, which allow me to read the opponent's attacks, and blue lines, which allow me to perform the most optimal attack. It is probably because the difference between Jaeon Myung-hoon and I are so vast that I can see so many openings. Blood suddenly leaked from Eunhyun's nostril. He groaned in pain and gripped his head. Huh? Shit, it hurts. It feels like my brain is burning up. Ugh. Does this vision overload the brain? Myung-hoon charged again with a roar of rage. You motherfucker, you almost killed us all, and you have the audacity to dodge my blows? Eunhyun struck Myung-hoon across the jaw. The man hit the ground with a heavy thud and remained still. Director Kim and the other co-workers rushed to the fallen man. Section Chief Jaeon. A woman walked up to Eunhyun with a worried look. Deputy Manager Eunhyun, are you alright? Eunhyun wiped the blood from his lip. He thought to himself, to think it would be so painful when I used it for such a short time. Phew, what might the problem be? The sun set behind the distant mountains. Eunhyun brought them to a cave and lit a fire and let them drift off to sleep after cooking some fruits. The co-workers lay asleep around the small campfire. Eunhyun stood in the dark forest and raised a wooden branch. He sliced a falling leaf clean in half with a swift motion. He thought to himself, without using a single bit of chi, I sliced a leaf in half with this dull branch. The vision of martial peak seems to predict the opponent, processing it as red and blue lines. If I use this vision, I can read all of the opponent's moves, and I can aim for the opponent's weaknesses with optimal movement. So this is why Kim Young-hoon referred to the memory of all five senses as a replication of a peak martial artist's vision. He was forcing me to enhance my five senses and manually calculate the opponent's trajectories. The vision of martial peak is truly incredible. Eunhyun closed his eyes and performed a series of strikes against invisible enemies. The dawn light began to glow through the trees. He panted heavily and smiled. Ha! Now, I have finally reached the proper martial peak. He clutched his forehead as a sharp pain returned. He groaned. KGH. My brain feels like it is about to get fried to a crisp. He looked at 8 massive yellow bamboo roots resting on the grass. But after I found 8 yellow bamboo roots nearby and performed the dragon vein chi method, I am now able to maintain the vision for 3 hours. Now that I have reached this level of prowess, I no longer need to sell these yellow bamboo roots. I can resolve financial issues with my own abilities. As for the leftovers, he watched the sleeping director Kim. He thought to himself, in my memory are 6 volumes worth of the findings of Kim Young-hoon in addition to the final teachings he left before he died. If I transfer this knowledge to him, This life's Kim Eunhyun will surely surpass the previous life's Kim Eunhyun. Eunhyun lifted a large green bundle of supplies onto his back. He thought to himself, now that I have reached the martial peak, I will be able to receive from Kim Eunhyun. The teachings I will receive from Kim Eunhyun will far exceed that of my previous life. I still have no clue how to reach the next stage. He looked at his sleeping companions one last time. But unlike my coworkers, there is only one option an idiot like me can do. Train endlessly. He walked away from the cave into the light of the morning. To continuously maintain a peak master's vision and allow my brain to grow used to it. My first goal in this life would be to resolve the burning pain I get when using this vision. And then, to finally attain the level of the 3 flowers gathering at the summit. I will reach what is known to be the pinnacle of Martial Peak, known as the 3 flowers gathering at the summit. Morning came. The sun shone brightly over the lush green mountains. The fox, known as the master of the forest, arrived in this life as well. Eunhyun held out his arm as a sacrifice. He grew curious. He wondered to himself, will I see red lines with this fox as well? His eyes glowed with a sharp blue light. A massive red aura erupted from the creature and filled the entire clearing. Eunhyun gasped in shock. It is red. Aak! It is red everywhere. The fox's jaws clamped down on his arm with a wet crunch. He thought to himself, I can't win. Just what is this? How could the entire area in my vision be filled with red? A few days passed. The cultivators descended from the dark sky. Eunhyun was shocked once more. He thought to himself, it is all red. So this is the difference between a martial artist and a cultivator. I can't win. There is no opening. Even a martial peak master would have trouble defeating the weakest cultivators, those who are at the first star of the chi refining stage. The day after the cultivators took his co-workers, Eunhyun stood before the Sea Dragon King. He pressed his hands together in a respectful gesture. A humble mortal asks the great Sea Dragon King a question. Seo Eunhyun looked at him with a curious smile. What is it? Eunhyun explained what he saw and asked about the red sphere the cultivators had. The immortal's eyes shimmered. Fu. Cultivators have a special kind of consciousness. It is named divine consciousness in some instances. While a mortal's consciousness doesn't extend past the brain, a cultivator's consciousness does, engulfing the surrounding area. I, a spiritual creature, also have said ability. Is your curiosity sated? Eunhyun bowed his head. Yes, thank you. Director Kim watched them with a confused expression. As they used the language of Yongguo, Kim Eunhyun was unable to understand the conversation. Shortly after Seo Eunhyun left, the hunchbacked old man on a puppet appeared again to take manager Kim away. He raised his hand and opened a dark, swirling portal. He threw Eunhyun and Kim Eunhyun into a spatial rift. The 2 men tumbled through the blue void and plunged into deep water. Eunhyun struggled to the surface. He thought to himself, what the shit? He climbed onto the sandy shore and wrung out his wet shirt. It was on top of the trees last time. Now it is in water? What a mess. Director Kim lay on the beach, gasping for air. Where are we? Eunhyun buttoned his shirt and looked at the distant mountains. Somewhere completely different. Judging by the landscape, this is the Chicken Head Lake of Yongguo. Changho City should be nearby. Director Kim stood up and looked around the empty shore. What do we do now? If there were people nearby, we could ask for directions. Eunhyun pointed across the vast expanse of water. There appears to be some buildings across the lake. Director Kim's eyes lit up. Oh, you're right. I know how to swim, so I will go there and get us some clothes and food. He dove headfirst into the lake. Deputy Manager Seo, fuck sake. What did we squeeze the water out of our clothes for, then? Eunhyun swam toward the distant docks. He thought to himself, if my memories serve me correctly, that building is a bandit's den. I went there to wipe them out in my previous life. Their leader was in the later stages of first rate, and their vice leader was in the middle stage of first rate. The rest are third or second rate small fry. Of course, they have numbers, so I did poison my sword to take them out. A bandit on the shore noticed a ripple in the water. The hell is that? He laughed as he signaled his companion. Haha, who is this fool? Do you know where you just swam to? Kiddo, get lost if you don't want to die. Eunhyun walked out of the surf with a calm expression. The bandit brandished a wooden club and stepped forward. Not listening, you fucker? I told you to get low. Eunhyun lunged forward. The man was sent flying through the air and crashed into the sand with a heavy thud. The other bandits stared in shock. Eunhyun picked up a discarded wooden branch and tested its weight. Not bad. A group of armed men ran toward him. Eunhyun looked at a massive bandit holding a spiked mace. Hey, you, how many people have you killed? The man roared in a frenzy. Well, you motherfucker, I've killed 50. Eunhyun moved in a blur. He struck the man across the face with the stick. Blood sprayed as the bandit's jaw shattered. The remaining outlaws backed away in fear. Eunhyun stood his ground with the branch held steady. Now then, from here on out, if you're someone who killed before, come at me. Inside the 3-story wooden fortress, the bandits cheered and drank. The room was filled with the sound of rowdy laughter. One man grabbed a female prisoner by her hair. "Bawahaha! Come over here, bitch!" The woman screamed in terror. "Kaya!" The bandit boss stopped with a cup of tea midair. Huh? Who the hell is that?" Eunhyun stood in the doorway, a dark silhouette against the light. He held a severed head in his hand. The boss stood up from his tiger skin throne and pointed a finger. "Ah! You son of a bitch! Hey, get your weapons! We got a rat in here!" The bandits drew their swords and surrounded the intruder. Eunhyun's stick glowed with a fierce blue light. "I don't even need to ask you guys. You're all going to die." The fortress was silent and littered with corpses. The boss knelt in the center of the room, trembling with fear. AP Peak Master, have mercy." Eunhyun stood over him, his face splattered with blood. "Let me ask you this. How long have I been here?" The man wheezed in pain. About 15 minutes. Eunhyun looked at his bloody hands. He thought to himself, it took about a day to wipe them out in my previous life. I had to set this place on fire, retreat, and take them out one by one with a poisoned sword. But now, in just 15 minutes, I took all of them out with this stick alone. He raised his hand toward the bandit's face. "All right, now die." The boss screamed in a panic. Wait, I'll tell you where I hid the money." Eunhyun swung his hand. "I already know where it is from the last time I was here." A spray of blood hit the floor. Eunhyun broke the heavy wooden lock on a cell door. The rescued prisoners fell to their knees in the dirt. "Thank you, sir. Thank you for taking revenge on these damned bandits." Eunhyun watched them in silence. He turned to walk away. One man looked up with wide eyes. "See, could you tell us your title, at least? If you do, we will ensure to pay our debt." Eunhyun stopped and looked over his shoulder with a confident smile. A title. Do inform us. Infinite Fighting Spirit. That is my title." Eunhyun traveled with Kim Young-hoon to Chengho City. They purchased identification plaques and a manor for themselves using the money taken from the bandits. Eunhyun spent his time teaching his friend martial arts and writing. 2 months passed. Young-hoon sat in a meditative trance while glowing blue lotuses floated around him. Eunhyun watched from the shadows of the room. He thought to himself, he is growing faster than before. It almost feels dejecting. It has always been this way. For some, it takes a lifetime to reach the martial peak, but others are able to skip the early stages of the pinnacle and reach the realm of 3 flowers gather at the summit with the guidance of a peak master and first-rate martial arts. Eunhyun walked toward the center of the room. "Congratulations. To think you would reach the 3 flowers gather at the summit realm before fully learning how to read." Young-hoon stood up and smiled. I am quite surprised as well. To think I had such martial talent." Eunhyun gripped his sword hilt. He thought to himself, thinking back to it, I have never had a proper evenly matched duel with Kim Young-hoon after he reached the realm of the 3 flowers. He was always just offering me guidance in the form of sparring. But how about now? I, who attained the martial peak, and Kim Young-hoon, who just reached the realm of 3 flowers. Eunhyun looked his mentor in the eye. "Then, would you be interested in a duel?" Young-hoon laughed. "Haha, sounds good. I think I might have a chance at beating you this time." The 2 warriors faced off in a clearing among the mountains. Eunhyun lunged forward in a blur. Severing mountain sword, entering mountain. Young-hoon countered with a massive blue slash. Severing leyline blade, dragon hill. Eunhyun gritted his teeth as red and blue lines raced across his vision. He thought to himself, shit, my blue lines are being pushed away. I need to dodge. No, if I dodge, I will just continue to get pushed away. For some reason, the fierce desire to win began to boil within my heart. Why could it be? I see, this is the very last time that I will have the chance to defeat him in this incarnation. Kim Young-hoon will continue to grow at incredible speeds. When we fight again, he will have attained prowess I can't even dream of matching. This moment, where he just attained the 3 flowers, is my last opportunity to defeat him in this life. Yeah, let's win. Using everything I have, Eunhyun threw several hidden daggers to disrupt the momentum. The metal blades whistled through the air. He thought to himself, all right, I disrupted the flow of his moves. I am ahead of him in terms of real combat experience. Severing mountain sword, flowing ridge. A massive shockwave of dust and stone erupted as the swords collided. Young-hoon smiled amidst the debris. I will show you the stage that is the 3 flowers. Eunhyun's eyes widened. He thought to himself, what? All my senses are sending me danger signals. Something big is coming. Young-hoon raised his blade as white energy surged around the steel. Enhanced blade chi. HAAP. A devastating wave of force tore through the forest. Eunhyun braced his sword. He thought to himself, I will be wholly severed if I try clashing against that attack. However, the Severing Mountain Sword I have learned is a martial art created by the genius Kim Eunhyun, who had reached the 5 energies converging to the origin. Severing Mountain Sword, Echoing Valley. A massive explosion of blue light filled the area. Eunhyun stood in the smoke and looked at his broken hilt. Ho ho, incredible. Eunhyun panted as he leaned on his sword. He thought to himself, he withstood my counterattack? The move was supposed to destroy his blade and knock him back. Eunhyun chuckled. It is my defeat. As my weapon broke, it is a disgrace to me as a martial artist. Anyways, you really were quite experienced. Eunhyun sheathed his blade. He thought to himself, there is no need to worry. Never again will I be able to defeat you. With today's battle, I will be unable to defeat Kim Eunhyun until my next life. The sun shone over the rooftops of the manor. Eunhyun walked toward Eunhyun with a stack of blue books. For reaching the 3 flowers gather at the summit realm, I have prepared a present for you. Eunhyun looked up. Oh, was that duel just now not my present? You prepared something else? Eunhyun handed him the bundle. Yes, here you are. This is. They are called the Scriptures of Gazing Cultivation and Exceeding Martial Arts. I bought them from some old man, and he told me that one needed to attain the realm of the 3 flowers in order to learn it. I read it myself, but I couldn't understand what it meant, so I will leave it to you. Eunhyun touched the covers. Oh ho, it is certainly a stroke of luck. I will accept it gratefully. After finishing learning how to read from me, Kim Eunhyun became entranced in reading the 6 volumes of the Scriptures of Gazing Cultivation and Exceeding Martial Arts. 4 months later, the sky glowed with a bright blue light. Eunhyun walked into the manor carrying a heavy bag. Eunhyun, I have come back with some money. I caught a big one, so I got quite the bounty. He looked around the quiet room. Huh? Did he leave? He looked at the open books on the floor. He thought to himself, I can't sense his presence at all. He must have completely left. A purple shadow suddenly manifested behind Eunhyun. Ha! Eunhyun laughed as he stood in the center of the room. Ha ha! I used one of the techniques recorded in the Scriptures of Gazing Cultivation and Exceeding Martial Arts. You really couldn't locate me. These books undoubtedly hold incredible martial arts. Eunhyun stared in shock. He thought to himself, Eunhyun, this strange technique is something that Kim Eunhyun used only after attaining the 5 energies gathering at the origin realm. But Kim Eunhyun is using it now, before a full year passed since my regression? Eunhyun looked at the text. Ha ha ha, this is just one of the techniques written in the Scriptures. If a martial artist like you, who has attained martial peak, can't notice me, I could assassinate anyone if I wanted to. Eunhyun smiled. He thought to himself, indeed, talent. Eunhyun sheathed his sword. Anyways, I am about to travel the lands to gain some real combat experience. Are you interested in joining me? Eunhyun crossed his arms. Traveling the lands. I'm alright, Eunhyun hung. Eunhyun looked puzzled. What do you mean? I believe I should focus on stabilizing my understanding of the martial peak. Eunhyun nodded. I understand. You were at the beginning of martial peak and still unable to use sword silk. Eunhyun looked out the window. Yes, but more importantly, I've gained an interest in the imperial regime. Eunhyun raised a brow. Imperial regime? If I get myself a spot in the government, a day may come where I could be of help to you. Who would be active in the Murum then? Eunhyun smiled warmly. Oh ho, Eunhyun, thank you. And so, he and I decided to part ways temporarily. Eunhyun looked at the imperial palace. He thought to himself, of course, I had some other reasons for wanting to join the imperial regime. From the information I had gathered as the strategist of the Martial Arts Alliance, the imperial family of Yongguo is more closely related to the Cultivators than any other mortal organization. According to rumors, it is said that the imperial family of Yongguo is actually a collateral branch of a clan of cultivators. So I applied to the Yongguo military. They fondly accepted me, as I have developed a name for myself as a well-known bounty hunter. Eunhyun sparred with the soldiers in a massive courtyard. He thought to himself, I entered the military and quickly rose to the position of general thanks to my skills. I then applied for the position of Imperial Guard, which I have easily passed. It is what I attained within just 5 years of my regression. A high official spoke to Eunhyun. Your duties are to put your life on the line to guard His Majesty. A martial artist of the Peak Realm can do that, yes. Eunhyun bowed. Yes, I will be sure to do so. Eunhyun walked through the palace halls in black shadow guard armor. He thought to himself, I entered the imperial family's shadow guards and was put into duty after training in stealth and hidden breathing techniques. The day I finally met the emperor, I have discovered something truly surprising. Eunhyun froze at the entrance of the throne room. The emperor sat on a golden throne as red energy pulsed from his body. Eunhyun's eyes widened in horror. He thought to himself, the emperor himself is a cultivator. The consciousness of a cultivator. The emperor was a cultivator who was born with a spiritual root. He thought to himself, my doubts were resolved after meeting a few of the emperor's kin. The majority of the imperial family were cultivators with consciousness to match. The only thing was that they did not seem to be higher-ranked cultivators. None of them came even close to that fox. Even so, they were cultivators of the qi refining realm. A cultivator in red robes stood in the courtyard. Eunhyun wondered to himself. He did not know why a martial artist who had merely reached martial peak must guard them. The emperor's consciousness was undoubtedly larger than that of qi refining stage, first star. With that much power, he would be stronger than every single shadow guard put together. The shadow guard was just something he utilized because he was lazy to kill assassins. The emperor was a man who received the most amount of assassinations in the empire. They came after him almost every single night. Eunhyun took care of them whenever they did. He slashed an assassin in the dark. It was nice that he could gain some more experience. Just like that, 5 years passed as he served the empire being a part of the shadow guard. Kim Young-hoon stood before a group of training soldiers. In that meantime, Kim Young-hoon became the alliance leader. As a member of the shadow guard, he was unable to officially meet with the alliance leader, so he met with him in secret and drank, catching up on each other. Young-hoon held his blade. Eunhyun watched the glowing red lines. Those red lines were the most optimal trajectories that the opponent could attack with. If he entered that area, he felt as if Kim Young-hoon's attacks would immediately slice him. No, this familiar feeling was almost like the consciousness of a cultivator. He thought to himself, ah, how unfortunate. If he had reached the stage of 3 flowers, he would have seen many more things. For now, he just tried to examine his current condition closely. Young-hoon panted as blue energy swirled around him. It was hard to understand everything right now, but he believed that this sight would become a clue for sword silk. His body changed. His muscles expanded as a blinding light filled the room. Eunhyun watched as Young-hoon became muscular and younger. Eunhyun spoke with a soft voice. Congratulations, you have gotten younger. Young-hoon looked at his glowing hands. Yes, he successfully reached 5 energies converging to the origin. Though, it was quite unfortunate for Eunhyun. If he had just attained 3 flowers, he would have been able to gain much more out of this. Eunhyun looked at the floor. He thought to himself. He thought the same. But what could be done? It was only his own fault that his skills were so meager. Young-hoon walked to the door. It should still be of some help, so ponder over it a bit more after you return. Eunhyun and Young-hoon walked together through the dark trees. Eunhyun asked a question. So Young-hoon, you must have met a few cultivators by now, right? Young-hoon nodded. Yes. To Eunhyun, the domain seemed quite similar to the consciousness that cultivators had. He asked another question. Do you think there is a relationship? Young-hoon looked at the red aura. He believed so. If it was within this region around him, he thought he could fight head-on with qi refining stage cultivators. Maybe those that have reached 5 energies gathered to the origin attain a similar sight that cultivators have. Eunhyun watched the path ahead. He thought to himself. He saw. So even martial artists could train like cultivators once they attained 5 energies gathered to the origin. Just as first rate and martial peak were entirely different, the level between martial peak and 5 energies must have a difference in one's vision, and it must be so large that it gets harder to imagine what it could even be. This experience today would help when he attempted to attain 5 energies one day. Eunhyun stood on the dark balcony. After receiving some instruction from Kim Young-hoon, he returned to the palace. A few days later, another assassin, a hooded figure, lunged at him from the shadows. He parried the strike. They are at martial peak. Seeing their skill, they had just recently attained it. Eunhyun clashed blades with the masked warrior. He thought to himself, how peculiar. He should be concentrating on the fight, but the image of Kim Young-hoon attaining 5 energies would not leave his head. Just what was sword energy? It was proof that one has become one with the sword, reaching the intermediate stages of first rate. Eunhyun's sword glowed with a bright blue light. Since one can always see the optimal trajectories when they reach martial peak, sword energy will never falter as long as the sword follows that optimal pathway. The optimal lines he saw were the most perfect ends that his sword arts could seek. Sword energy was about becoming one with his sword style, and bringing its potential out to the maximum. Sword martial arts was ultimately the same as sword energy. Eunhyun paused as his eyes widened. Hold on, that cannot be right. If that were true, then would not Jiangxi controlled by cultivators be able to use sword energy if they learned the sword? The memory of a zombie flashed in his mind. Sword energy was not simply martial arts. Sword energy was, he saw. Though sword energy was created by martial arts, its core cause was the human. The intention of the martial artist performing it. These red and blue lines were not just merely optimal attacks. They were the intention of the martial artist using the sword. They were the trajectories of intention. Eunhyun gripped his hilt. Once he realized that, he sensed a strange feeling emitting from his hand that was gripping the sword. It was as if veins had sprouted from the sword and entered into his arm. Eunhyun lunged through the air and struck the assassin. The woman was blown back by a massive explosion of light. She hit the wall with a loud crash. Eunhyun looked at his hand. He thought to himself, this was not the end. If he kept infusing intent into the sword, blue lightning crackled around the metal. So this can be created in real life as well. Sword silk. Within 10 years of reaching peak master, he finally became able to use sword silk, reaching the intermediate levels of martial peak. The wounded girl groaned as she looked up from the floor. Eunhyun thought to himself, a familiar face? You are one of the emperor's servants who was hired recently. Reaching martial peak at such a young age, if you could survive, you would have the talent to reach the 3 flowers. You are the infinite fighting monster, right? Eunhyun looked at her. Does this one look familiar? He remembered his past. 10 years ago, on that day, this one told them he was the infinite fighting spirit, but the people of Yangguo somehow began calling him the infinite fighting monster. The girl coughed as blood trickled down her chin. My sibling was more talented than this one was. But because of that damned emperor. Eunhyun stood over her with a cold expression. Appealing to emotions will serve you no good. The rule is to have assassins executed on the spot. A group of shadow figures landed on the courtyard tiles. Another assassination attempt? The lead assassin roared as he pointed a dagger. You are making a mistake, infinite fighting monster. People are dying at the emperor's orders. He is. The metal sliced through the air and blood sprayed against the stone walls. Eunhyun looked at the corpses. This one is sorry, but the act of being convinced by an assassin in itself is a capital offense. He disposed of the corpse with the help of other guards. Eunhyun looked at the quiet palace. There was a loud commotion until now, but the emperor has not moved from his sleeping chambers. His chambers have a technique of silence applied on them, as if he does not even care about hiding the fact that he is a cultivator. After all, everyone among the shadow guards knows that the emperor is a cultivator. A guard gestured to the floor. Tidy it up. Eunhyun watched the purple light above the roof. Those who have reached the martial peak can see a cultivator's consciousness with their own eyes, but we merely continue to guard him, because it is the duty we have been given. Recently, the amount of assassination attempts have increased. Yangguo has been in a period of absolute prosperity under the emperor's rule. Granted, some people are still in poverty, but there have never been incidents where commoners would be pushed to the point of becoming bandits. But who is sending so many assassins to the emperor? He inspected the poisoned blades. It is poisoned with quite dangerous things, and they are a person of Yangguo, who knows this title. Eunhyun walked through the empty halls. Well, time can be taken to look into it. This one came here to gather more information about cultivators. Anyways, 10 years passed. The sun shone over the imperial palace grounds. Eunhyun gained the trust of the emperor for his hard work, and he was able to use the authority he had gained from doing so to gather more information about the imperial family. Of course, he was not able to access top secrets, but with the documents he could access as a government official, he was able to find clues to the cultivators. Eunhyun sat in the library. He finally found the location of the cultivators. Anyway, it is so difficult gathering information on the cultivators. At this rate, where this one is now is far better than back when he was the strategist of the alliance. However, he looked at his sword and realized his progress. And thanks to the experience gained every night, reaching the 3 flowers at this pace seems possible. Eunhyun turned the pages of a census report. Next is the report on the census. In the 33rd year of the Haeyun calendar, the number of orphans and beggars has greatly decreased thanks to the work of His Majesty, and as a result, decreased influx of people who become bandits. Eunhyun looked puzzled. This is a government report. So why is it so shabby? The most important part was left out. How did the number of beggars decrease? Did they starve to death? If such a large amount of people starved to death, this one would have known of it in previous lives. And it is not that they were able to move up socially, nor did the emperor give them a way for them to earn their own living. They have simply been erased. The sky grew dark. And it is not as if Yangguo has been in drought or war. Eunhyun thought to himself, strange. The current emperor may not be the best ruler, but he is at least average in ruling ability. So where did all of the erased lower-class citizens go? If it is something that the government reports cannot identify, it must be related to the cultivators. Missing information is always related to the cultivators. Further investigation of this matter must be left to Kim Young-hoon. The scene shifted to the Muram alliance. The retirement ceremony of Kim Young-hoon, the first alliance leader, had commenced. Many expressed disappointment at his retirement, but Kim Young-hoon seemed quite happy. Young-hoon raised his blade in front of the crowd. He thought to himself, that is because, the fact that he retired from the position of alliance leader. meant that he had understood all 6 volumes of the scriptures of gazing cultivation and exceeding martial arts, and had set out to find the cultivators. Eunhyun visited his friend at night. You seem to be in a good mood. Eunhyun smiled. Oof, he thought it might be an assassin, but it was just you. Your aura as a shadow guard reminds this one more of an assassin day by day. Eunhyun explained his findings. He told him the information gathered while working for the government. Hearing that it was related to the cultivators, he showed great interest. Eunhyun pointed at the map. There are some regions that cultivators reside in, so it would be helpful if you could dig up more information about them. Eunhyun laughed heartily. Oh ho, tilde sure. This one was curious as to what they were up to. And so Eunhyun decided to dig into the cultivators through Kim Young-hoon. He patrolled the palace. Vice Squad Leader, there are no issues at the North Gate. Eunhyun looked at the quiet courtyard. The assassination frequency has dwindled. It seems they could not exactly send an infinite number of Marshal Peak assassins. A blast of fire destroyed the doors. Assassins at the East Gate! A guard screamed as he burned. Gah! A blue-haired man stood on the roof. They are all of the Peak realm? How annoying! Eunhyun focused his vision. That annoying vision prevents this one from using stealth techniques. Eunhyun reached for his hilt. A cultivator? So they sent a cultivator as an assassin this time? He roared to his men. Everyone, prepare yourselves. The blue-haired man pulled out glowing talismans. How foolish, you intend to fight me? You martial artists have probably only ever fought chi refining stage cultivators of the 1st star. But this one is a 2nd star cultivator of the chi refining stage. Energy surged from the amulets. Everyone shall be killed, as well as that branch family bastard of the Mokli clan. The fire slammed into the guards and they screamed. Ag! The cultivator smiled. Oh-ho, tilde Eunhyun stood in the middle of the flames. You blocked that attack? For a damn insect like you, those eyes are rather arrogant, from merely blocking a single attack. A guard frowned at the shimmering purple light in the palace courtyard. Damn it, a barrier. A soldier looked at the sealed building with a worried expression. What the hell is going on inside? Another man pointed toward the dark temple entrance. Did a cultivator break in or something? Go call for reinforcements first. Eunhyun panted as he struggled to stand amidst the bodies. I will cut him down. I will cut him down. Just 1 second. If I can evolve sword threads into sword aura. The cultivator laughed from behind his crackling defensive spell. How many times have I told you? With your power, you can't break this defensive spell. The man gasped as the sword sliced into his energy shield. Huh? This lunatic. Eunhyun fell to the floor and coughed up a pool of blood. Damn it. My sword aura, wrung out from all my energy, undone so easily. As expected, without enlightenment, sword aura cannot last even a second. The cultivator yelled in a rage. How dare you? He slammed his foot into Eunhyun's chest. How dare a worm like you talk about cutting me down? The man reached into his robes for several golden talismans. I was going to toy with you before killing that McCree branch brat, but I have changed my mind. I will run you through and crush you to death. The guards reached out in fear from the shadows of the hallway. Deputy Leader, the cultivator glanced back with a cold and arrogant stare. Don't interfere, you worms. No matter how much you resist a cultivator, don't you know you will just end up trampled like this? Eunhyun coughed more blood onto the stone floor. Damn it. My organs are wrecked from burning all my energy at once. The man looked down with a mocking smile. Still alive, huh? Let us see how long you last, worm. Eunhyun thought to himself. Yes, I am no different from a worm. My talent, my skill, even my life, all a worm's. The cultivator wondered. HMPH, what? Are you begging? Eunhyun thought to himself. But the years I trained, all those times I endured, will not vanish. I figured it out when he used stealth. What the hell? This guy never trained his body, never measured distance in battle. He was just born with talent. A guy who only happened to learn spells. I might lose to someone like this. I might fall before him. However, don't tell me the years I endured, all my effort, were just wasted. Don't tell me I will never reach it. Don't make me give up. He lunged forward and grabbed the man's ankle. A worm's struggle isn't meaningless. The cultivator tried to pull his leg free and kick him away. This filthy thing, stop spouting crap and let go. The man blinked as blood began to run from his nose. Huh? What the? Eunhyun thought to himself. Poison. Sword aura to break the barrier was only a decoy. The real strike was the poison on the blade. The cultivator trembled as his face turned pale and his eyes bulged. Damn it. Poison? An antidote. Eunhyun pinned him to the floor and covered his mouth with a bloodied hand. Like I would let you use it. Taste the wrath of the worm, you mocked. He gritted his teeth and held the man down. First, cover his mouth so he cannot chant, and block his hands so he cannot form seals. Try casting a spell now. The guards called out for aid. Help! One of the soldiers swallowed hard as the purple energy faded. The seal shattered into 1,000 shards. The soldiers sprinted into the room. The barrier is broken. Get in! Eunhyun looked at the lifeless body beneath him. You called me a worm, but in death, you look no different. Eunhyun opened his eyes slowly. The patient was awake. The guard sat on a chair and puffed on his pipe. Eunhyun coughed. Yes. By the way, was it okay to smoke beside a patient? The guard looked at him. What was he talking about? Tobacco was a wholesome herb. Eunhyun thought to himself. What the hell was that supposed to mean? Ah, this was on a medieval level. His Majesty sent the imperial physician to treat him. He should be grateful for his mercy. The guard gestured with his pipe. Eunhyun sat up. The body felt lighter. As expected of the imperial physician, his skills were superb. This one almost wanted to learn his techniques. He looked at his bandaged hand. And your right hand. The imperial physician said it could be used, but it would not be like before. The guard spoke plainly. Eunhyun thought to himself. It was probably not fully healed yet, so do not push it. It was a hand stomped and gnawed by a cultivator. It would not ever be quite normal. Eunhyun nodded. Still, he was relieved that he could move it. Yes, this one admired your optimism. His Majesty, impressed by your spirit, granted a reward. Can you move? Official commendations could not be given to the Imperial Shadow Guard, so he asked to deliver it in person. The guard stood tall and held a blue box. His Majesty decreed. Deputy Leader Seo Eunhyun of the Imperial Shadow Guard, by throwing himself into danger, defended the sacred throne. He presented the foundation building pellet, said to be used by legendary cultivators. Eunhyun knelt. Long live His Majesty the Emperor. The guard opened the box. Eunhyun stared at the glowing red pill. He thought to himself. From what was heard about the Foundation Establishment pellet, the pill chi refiners took to reach Foundation Establishment. They only took the essence from it to make this. He did not really know what that meant. It was just the leftover dregs of a Foundation Establishment pellet. From working in a medical hall, he had made elixirs a few times. After refining elixirs there were always dregs, and a pill made by collecting those dregs, after its medicinal power had mostly seeped out, was politely called made by extracting the essence. Eunhyun smiled. He thought to himself. He guessed the guard did not know alchemist slang. It was usually just useless residue, sold as hangover cures or peddled to fake strongmen. The Emperor had a petty side. The guard watched him. They said when ordinary people took it, it extended life by 10 years. Eunhyun looked shocked. 10 years? Was that even real? The guard nodded. Even the leaders secretly wanted that pellet, but there was nothing to be done about the Emperor's gift. Eunhyun held the box. He would take it once his meridians were more stable. The guard exhaled. Yes, never forget the Emperor's boundless grace. Eunhyun walked through the manor. He thought to himself, of course, to truly test its effect, he should take it not when his meridians were stable, but when his life was nearly spent. The palace's benefits were generous. 10 years, a full 10 years. If he took it right before death, he could live another decade. Joining the Imperial Palace was definitely the right move. Somehow, this life finally felt like it was going to be okay. Eunhyun practiced with his sword in the sun. The metal clashed against the ground. Damn it. It hurt so much. He thought to himself. His body was certainly healed, but every time he gripped the sword, an unbearable pain rang out. To think he could not even use all 24 forms of the mountain-breaking sword art. Was this the limit of his martial skill in this life? No. The road to become a peak master had always been a life soaked in pain. What did it matter if he suffered a little more? Pain had shadowed him his whole life. So he would not give up. He would raise his realm, no matter what. 30 years passed. The man looked at a letter in his hand. He thought to himself. 30 years had passed since transmigration. The pain in his grip had become familiar. His sword work had matured, and stealth techniques were slowly becoming second nature. And most importantly, he had nearly unveiled the cultivators' hidden secrets through Kim Young-hoon's letters. Cultivator clans, for the most part, kept their homes hidden inside powerful arrays with divine protections. Lesser cultivators built mansions in the world, while true heirs or prodigies lived safely inside the clan's arrays. Ordinary people lived in cultivator territory because they were needed as servants or to be exploited as slaves. Eunhyun stood by a candle. He thought to himself. And according to Kim Young-hoon's latest report, the folks who had been sending peak masters from the Imperial Palace were one of those cultivator families who recruited talented commoners within their territory and trained them into peak masters. Now he saw the whole picture. It was likely the poor who vanished from the ledgers were taken into cultivator lands. There, they were either raised as assassins or forced to serve the cultivators. Since they later even used cultivators as assassins, the emperor was probably tangled in the cultivator family's power struggles. From now on, he would stop worrying about that and focus only on his martial arts. Kim Young-hoon appeared behind him. What was he muttering, Brother Seo? Eunhyun turned around. Huh, Brother Kim? He thought to himself. He had just finished reading and burning the letter Brother Kim sent. Eunhyun checked the time. That letter was sent last month, it must have arrived late. Young-hoon entered the room. He found something quite odd this past month, so he came personally. Eunhyun wondered, what did he mean? Young-hoon drew 2 small blades. First, let's break through those suspicious spells. To explain, there are 2 cultivator families in this Yin kingdom. Eunhyun nodded. Yes, he saw that in the letter sent. Young-hoon looked out at the palace. One was the current imperial family, the McCree clan, and the other was, yes, the former imperial house, the Jin clan. The McCree clan and the Jin clan had fought for control for centuries. 100 years ago, they drove out the Jin clan, who had long ruled Yin kingdom, and seized power. That became the McCree clan. After the McCree took over, the Jin clan's influence dwindled greatly. That's why the Jin clan recruited commoners and trained them into peak masters to assassinate the emperor. Eunhyun agreed. Yes, he read that in Brother Kim's letter. Young-hoon looked grim, but here's the crucial part. How could the Jin clan mass produce peak masters like they were stamping them out? The Jin clan implanted vengeful spirits of their family into those assassins' bodies, drawing out every ounce of vitality and forcing their talent to the extreme. Eunhyun gasped. Vengeful family spirits? Did he mean the Jin clan killed the assassins' families and shoved their souls into them? Young-hoon looked down. No, it was the current imperial family who slaughtered their families. The cultivator house behind the imperial family, the McCree clan. Eunhyun was stunned. What? Young-hoon watched the lightning. For the past 20 to 30 years, the McCree clan had captured orphans, beggars, and poor farmers to make medicine. The McCree clan collected essence blood and innate true chi from commoners to produce a forbidden elixir that extended cultivators' lifespans. And to get ingredients for that elixir, they took those no one would miss, captured them, and ground them down to make medicine. Eunhyun gagged. What? That's cannibalism, isn't it? Young-hoon nodded. Yes, that's exactly it. They were eating people. Eunhyun felt a wave of nausea. He thought to himself, not even rogue sects or demonic cults, these so-called cultivators were doing this? These scum who claimed to cultivate the Tao to ascend to heaven? He was disgusted that imperial cultivators would resort to cannibalism, but also, the common people were dying at the emperor's command. His life up until now, protecting such people. How many innocents he had killed with his own hands. Young-hoon held out his hand. While he was investigating the McCree clan, the Jin clan contacted him. They offered him a chance to join them in toppling the McCree clan. He accepted. Those filthy bastards who devoured people must not be allowed to live. Such filth should never rule this country. He went to many martial arts sects, gathering masters who shared his ideals. Eunhyun, you come with him too. If the Jin clan returns to the throne of Yin Kingdom, they'll at least be a bit better than the McCree cults. Eunhyun thought to himself. The end of his second life. The real reason the Foundation establishment cultivators stopped them back then. Was that the reason? For such a reason, he, until now, Eunhyun gripped his sword. All right, he would join as well. With that, he left the Imperial Palace with Kim Young-hoon that day. To join the forces fighting against the Imperial cultivator families. The group arrived at a pavilion located on the outskirts of Seoking City. Eunhyun saw that all the greatest martial artists of Yonggwa were gathered there. The elders of the 4 stars and 3 demons stood among the crowd. He thought to himself, there are elders of Yonggwa's great sects here as well. All of them have attained martial peak, and there are over 10 martial masters who have attained the 3 flowers. If it weren't for the cultivators, they could easily overthrow the empire itself. A martial artist with a top-knot gestured toward Eunhyun and spoke with a suspicious voice. But why did you bring a man who works for the government? One who works for the emperor, at that. I cannot trust those affiliated with the government. Eunhyun inhaled deeply. He thought to himself, so this is the only way I can get them to trust me. Eunhyun screamed at the top of his lungs. That motherfucking emperor piece of shit. He began unleashing all of the frustration he had pent up towards the emperor through profanity. He shouted, a bastard like you should be cursed and executed. The martial artist stepped back in shock. An old master with a long white beard raised his hands. Hey, you can stop now. We trust you. Another man groaned and covered his ears. Such ear-rotting words. Even if he were a spy, he would be executed afterwards for uttering such things. How unfortunate, I still had plenty left. The martial artists came to accept him, and they departed to destroy an outpost of the demonic cultivators. A red-haired elder stood in the valley and looked at the camp. Not bad. Eunhyun stared at the guards in the distance. He thought to himself, those clothes. It is the same as that of the cultivator who attempted to assassinate the emperor a few years ago. So he was a cultivator of the Jin clan. Kim Young-hoon stood before the group. Allow us to help slay those devious cultivators. The red-haired man nodded. All right, prepare to depart. Young-hoon turned toward the forest. I have a place to stop by, so follow me. Eunhyun followed him to a rocky clearing. Where are you heading to? Young-hoon hung. Young-hoon looked at the piles of stones. These are the graves of those who died at the hands of the McCree clan. I recovered what I could of their bodies and tried my best to make the graves. Eunhyun spoke with a surprised tone. While you buried all these people yourself? Young-hoon raised his hands as a glowing blue orb of energy formed between his palms. Heaven leading spell, he explained. Their souls are filled with vengeance at being killed by the McCree clan's cultivators. So in order to allow their souls to depart, I learned the spell that leads them to heaven from the Jin clan cultivators. The blue light shattered into 1,000 glowing motes that floated toward the sky. Young-hoon looked at the horizon. Do not forget, Eunhyun. Not all spells of cultivators are disgusting things. What is important is how they are used. Focus on keeping the heart of a human at all times and not just getting stronger. Eunhyun watched the light in silence. He thought to himself. Young-hoon prepared to fight. Let us go. Steel yourself. The red-haired elder pressed his hands together. Then we will open the pathway to the domain of the McCree clan. A massive flash of white light consumed the forest. Eunhyun gasped as the view completely changed. The view completely changed. But this smell, that place reeks of blood and rotting corpses. The guards on the castle walls shouted in a panic. Intruders! Those Jin clan scoundrels have attacked. A massive blue barrier shimmered over the palace. The red-haired elder frowned. Those McCree clan bastards. Their barrier technique is undoubtedly excellent as always. Young-hoon walked toward the gate with slow and steady steps. A cultivator questioned the elder. Elder, just who is that mortal to walk up to us and act as if he owns the place without our permission? The red-haired man replied. He may be a mortal, but he is special. I know it may be hard to believe, but he and I were of equal grounds in terms of prowess. The other man looked stunned. What? Young-hoon gathered a terrifying amount of blue energy in his palms. HAAP. He slammed the orb into the barrier and caused a massive explosion that shattered the energy shield. Eunhyun watched the debris fall. He thought to himself, that is the realm beyond the 5 energies converging to the origin. A horde of pale and screaming Jiangshi poured out of the smoke. The red-haired elder roared. Break past the Jiangshi and enter the castle. Eunhyun leapt into the air and slashed his sword through the rotting flesh of the monsters. The Jiangshi groaned as they fell. A cultivator shouted in fear. These brutes. They are top-grade martial artists. Qi refining stage cultivators of the 1st and 2nd star, back out and call for reinforcements. Eunhyun stared at the enemies. He thought to himself, seeing these familiar Jiangshi and those clothes. That bastard was a cultivator of the McCree clan. He looked at the glowing red threads attached to the zombies. He wondered, anyways, why can I see this? How strange. Weren't these strings a visualization of intent? So how is it that Jiangshi, who are empty corpses, have intent as well? Is it the will of the cultivators who control these Jiangshi? No, that is not it. So why is it that the Jiangshi cannot use sword qi? He identified the man in charge. He is the one controlling them. Eunhyun moved in a blur toward a cultivator in blue robes. He thought to himself, judging by the size of his consciousness, he is around a 1st star of the qi refining stage. The cultivator screamed in terror. Spare me. What is this? The man wheezed in pain. Ack! I will tell you everything. This is the 1st refinement process. Eunhyun spoke with a cold voice. 1st refinement? The cultivator spoke frantically. Yes, we extract the blood and qi of the mortals and put them on a spell formation to create origin blood. If we deliver said origin blood to the higher-ups, they take them to a domain of a higher rank, then perform the secondary refinement by mixing the origin blood. After a 5th refinement, when alchemy is performed on several thousand mortals worth of blood and qi in the form of living blood, the rejuvenation pill to be taken by the core formation elders would then be complete. The man looked at Eunhyun with a desperate grin. If you wish, I will give you all the origin blood I have refined. They are quite strong lumps of energy, so eating them will increase your qi and... Eunhyun's eyes went dark. Thanks. Now I don't need to hesitate to kill you. The cultivator gasped. Huh? A group of Imperial Shadow Guards landed nearby. One of them spoke with a shocked voice. Squad leader? Eunhyun looked at them. His former comrade gripped a spear. I know no traitors. A traitor, you say? Eunhyun held his sword steady as the dust swirled around them. Leader, do you know what the current imperial family is doing? The leader lunged forward with a burst of speed. I know. Eunhyun swung his blade to parry the massive strike. You know, yet you still serve the imperial family? Is that what a human should do? The leader slammed his boot into the ground and delivered a heavy blow. Before we are human, we are the limbs of His Majesty the Emperor. Limbs do not think, they merely act as commanded. Eunhyun gritted his teeth against the pressure of the polearm. How frustrating! In the eyes of the Emperor, mortals like us are nothing but livestock. The leader adjusted his grip. Your skills have improved. Leader, he's standing on the threshold of 3 flowers gather at the summit. Are they any different? Those Jin clan remnants you're working with, are those former imperial bastards any different? The leader stepped forward. Compared to those demonic bastards, no. The former royal Jin clan you came with, they are also cultivators. To them, mortals are insects, the only difference lies in degree and scope. In the end, they too will grind down the people of Yin Kingdom. They might even be worse than the ones now. Eunhyun felt a powerful vacuum pull at his body and throw him off balance. He thought to himself, damn it, I'm getting pulled in. I can't stop this. But, that strange light again since a while ago. What's that light? The leader roared as blue energy flared around his spear. If neither side is any better, then I won't take back my loyalty. Eunhyun focused his intent. He thought to himself, Gangchi, the will to kill me in a single strike. He spoke with a cold and focused voice. If that's what you believe. Severing mountain sword technique. Secluded valley. A massive explosion of blue energy leveled the courtyard and sent rubble flying. The leader stared in disbelief as blood splattered his armor. He groaned in agony. Your sword technique, no matter how many times I've seen it, remains mysterious and unfathomable. Eunhyun walked toward him through the smoke. Then I shall respect it as well. He thought to himself. This is the only form I have that can block Gangchi. I can't control its power. It is a swordsmanship too grand for someone like me. Eunhyun stood over him. Too grand? How could that be? The leader smiled weakly. That strike just now was enlightenment within 3 flowers gather at the summit. It was the most beautiful form I've ever seen. All my life I pursued martial arts, hoping to reach 3 flowers gather at the summit, but when I finally did, I realized it was merely the lowest level of the cultivators. I understood then, that with martial arts alone, one can never surpass the cultivators. It's a shame, that your intent and mine are different. The leader went limp and fell face down in the dirt. Eunhyun turned to the remaining shadow guards. Why didn't you interfere in our fight? Had you stepped in while I fought the leader, I might be the one lying dead right now. A guard gripped his spear and spoke with a firm voice. It was the leader's request. He said if we interfered, you would use poisons and hidden weapons, so he asked that you both test pure martial skill instead. Eunhyun sighed. You still call me your vice lord. The guard raised his weapon in a salute. Once a superior, always a superior. Once loyalty is given, it is forever. And the emperor to whom we once swore loyalty, remains our eternal sovereign. Eunhyun tightened his grip on his sword. So, you too will keep your loyalty to the current imperial court. I'm sorry, I might have to kill you today. The battlefield was filled with screams. Die you demonic scum! A red-haired man unleashed a wave of fire. Eunhyun and a guard panted as they leaned on their weapons. Why was such a harsh path chosen? Paralysis poison, seriously. Everyone could have been killed. If you had, subduing would have happened easily without a single wound. Why was enduring the pain chosen instead? Eunhyun looked at them. You called me the vice lord, didn't you? The guard smiled weakly. Did a new perspective arrive? Have you reached the 3 flowers gather at the summit? Red light was not seen, yet a breakthrough through the harmony happened with that force. Eunhyun shook his head. Sorry, but that realm has not been reached yet. Only beginning to grasp its sensation little by little. A 3rd color was definitely seen. But it does not stay stable. He wondered. Purple. Are more life and death battles needed to stabilize it? A man in blue stood on a roof. Impressive, Vice Lord, your skill is at this level. Now it is seen why father sent this one here. Eunhyun looked up. The crown prince of the McCree clan? It's been a while, your highness. If you've been watching since earlier, why didn't you intervene? The prince smiled. Hey, this one told you not to call me crown prince. Well, since you keep saying it, let something be told. Do you know why this one became crown prince? His eye widened. It's because the chi refining realm was reached, 4 stars at a young age, the same level as father. No matter how amazing your 3 flowers gather at the summit might sound, that only puts you roughly at chi refining realm, 1 to 3 stars. The prince laughed. And you think you can defeat me, someone who's already reached 4 stars? Do you think someone like me even needs guards? Ha 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 ha. Eunhyun thought to himself. He's strong. Even the experts at Three Flowers Gather at the summit would have to stake their lives against him. But this one is only barely standing on the edge of that boundary. If a fight happens, death will definitely occur. He gripped his hilt. He wondered. But why? Is a smile forming on these lips? Ah, it is seen. It is because dying is not a concern. If the threat of enlightenment can be grasped, what does it matter if death happens the next moment? If the Tao is heard in the morning, it is fine to die by evening. Eunhyun thought to himself. That was what was once taught, wasn't it? When the fight against those 50 chi-building cultivators happened, back then, that martial art could not be comprehended at all. But now, it is finally understood. The prince watched him. You're charging at me to die. Vice Lord, you're more of a fool than was thought. Eunhyun lunged forward. Record of transcending cultivation and exhausting martial arts. Eunhyun leapt through a cloud of thick black smoke as the crown prince looked on in shock. The crown prince wondered to himself. Where did he disappear to? Eunhyun thought to himself. I think I get it now. The record of martial arts surpassing through cultivation and leaps. The record of transcendent and ultimate martial arts. I had memorized the scriptures until now, but I could not understand a single word. That is why, even though I possessed this divine art, it was impossible to comprehend. But now, the moment I saw that purple path, I felt like I could somehow understand the record of transcendent and ultimate martial arts. In a contest of martial arts, if the clash of hues is the technique, is it not possible to attack the hue itself? Eunhyun opened his eyes as a blue glow flickered within. He thought to himself, before I set foot into the Three Blossoms Crown Peak, it was a passage I could not understand. But now, I get it. A hue is one's will, and to attack the hue means to go beyond just exchanging blows of will with the opponent. It is to sever the opponent's very perception, an extension of their will. Eunhyun vanished and reappeared directly behind the cultivator. The crown prince looked around frantically. Where did he disappear to? Eunhyun thought to himself. The divine skill that made Kim Young-hoon vanish like a phantom. It was a secret technique that cut away my perception, making me unable to recognize him. A martial art that allows a martial artist and a cultivator to become equals, if only for a moment. This is a martial art created by man to overcome the heavens. The crown prince gritted his teeth as their weapons clashed with a sharp metallic ring. You bastard! What kind of petty trick was that? What was that? Was he wrapping his body in a defensive spell? A massive explosion of energy sent Eunhyun flying backward through the air. He hit the ground and tumbled through the dirt. The crown prince raised his hand as a swirling aura of power gathered. The trick was amusing, but I will show you that it will not work on a true cultivator. A massive tornado of wind and dust roared across the courtyard and shattered the stone floor. Eunhyun hit a wall and fell to his knees. He thought to himself, I should probably dodge for now. Wind blades sliced through the air and destroyed a nearby building. Eunhyun watched the swirling currents from the shadows. He thought to himself, should I try to approach the cultivator with the record of transcendent and ultimate martial arts once more? No, that is not it. Every single one of those wind currents is a wind blade. If I get any closer, I will be torn to shreds. Besides, even if I somehow manage to get inside, I still have to break through the defensive spell the crown prince has cast around himself. As long as I am outside the cultivator's conscious domain, and I carefully observe his will, dodging is not a problem, but a martial artist's internal energy is impure compared to a cultivator's spiritual power. No matter how much internal energy one has, a martial artist will tire out far more quickly than a cultivator. I cannot drag this out. I have to end this quickly. And to do that, right now, I must ascend to the Three Blossoms Crown Peak. The crown prince looked confused as Eunhyun stood tall. The cultivator spoke with a mocking tone. What's this? Are you already exhausted? Eunhyun gripped the hilt of his sword with both hands. Severing mountain sword technique. Sealing the ridge. A massive blast of blue energy slammed into the ground. The crown prince gasped as the force pushed him back. Eunhyun groaned as blood leaked from his bandaged hands. He thought to himself, the hand holding the sword hurts like crazy. But I have to face it without dodging. Sharp discs of wind spun toward him from every direction. Eunhyun moved his blade in a frantic rhythm. Severing mountain sword technique. Flowing dragon sword dance. Sparks flew as the metal sliced through the wind currents. Eunhyun thought to himself, don't stop. I do not care if my body becomes a tattered rag. The crown prince pressed his fingers together to form a complex seal. HMPH, how dare you? Now, die. A giant creature made of sand and wind lunged forward with its jaws open. Eunhyun stared at the glowing monster. He thought to himself, I cannot block that. I cannot dodge it. I know instinctively. The moment that thing reaches me, I am dead. But for some reason, I was not worried about that. I was just endlessly chasing the faint, purple will. What does the color purple signify? Blue is the will of self-protection. That is why it extends from me. Red is the will of killing intent. That is why it extends from the enemy. Purple is where self-protection and killing intent, the enemy's will and my own will, mix. Until now, I thought that the will of another person was unconditionally red. But if I change my perspective, from the other's point of view, their own will is blue, and my will must be red. The other's will, and my own will, are merely a matter of perspective. Could it be that they are all the same color? The martial arts can never be perfected alone. One must connect with the opponent. A state where, through the opponent's will, you can mirror your own actions. Ah, so this is the state of the Three Blossoms Crown Peak. By reflecting my consciousness in the Crown Prince's will, I understood how much energy I had been wasting all this time. Eunhyun's sword glowed with a blinding white light. Sword aura, he thought to himself. Why was it that with my own body's strength alone, no matter how much internal energy I poured in, I could not maintain a sword aura for more than a second? Because martial arts is not something you unleash with your own power alone. Only by connecting with the opponent's will, and the will of the world, can one complete the true art of martial arts. Eunhyun lunged through the heart of the storm. Severing Mountain Sword Technique. Fifth form, Severing Mountain. A massive explosion of golden light leveled the courtyard. The Shadow Guard unit watched the battle while collapsed on the ground, struck by Seo Eunhyun's paralysis powder. They thought to themselves. Everyone already knew the outcome. That this desperate struggle was meaningless because the opponent was a cultivator. An existence on a completely different level from a martial artist. A heavy boot struck the cracked stone floor. One of the Shadow Guards looked up in astonishment. His eyes went wide. Three Blossoms, Crown Peak. Eunhyun walked through the flames as 3 golden lotuses made of fire floated behind his head. Eunhyun hissed as steam rose from his body. He thought to himself, all the wasted chi is coming back. The prince's eyes went wide. He spoke with a shaky voice. You, what is happening? Eunhyun stared at him with a dark and determined gaze. He spoke with a gravelly voice. Lock in, your majesty. Prince Mokli Yun laughed as he formed a complex hand seal. Ha, you got stubborn after breaking one formation. How about this one? A massive tornado of golden dragons roared into existence and filled the sky. Eunhyun sprinted across the stone courtyard. He thought to himself, I do not feel like I am going to die from attacks like that anymore. I understand, now that I have achieved 3 flowers gather at the summit. Transcending Peak steps and the Mountain Lord steps are meant to be one move. Eunhyun lunged through the heart of the storm. He thought to himself, the Mountain Lord transcends great peaks. Then it leaps. Mountain Lord's transcending peaks step. The prince shouted as he backed away in terror. Ha, another trick. Do you think you can get through my tornado? That is the culmination of thousands of wind formations. Eunhyun focused his energy on his blade. He thought to himself, however, I can deflect it. Severing Mountain Swordsmanship. 4th technique, Landscape Painting. A massive explosion of light filled the courtyard as Eunhyun drove his sword forward. He thought to himself, I could not break this defense formation last time, but it will be different with Sword Gang. The prince screamed as blood sprayed from his throat. He cried out as he clutched his wound. Do not come any closer. Go away. Stay away from me. Eunhyun chased the retreating prince through the smoke. He thought to himself, I cannot let him escape. The prince hit the ground hard and scrambled backward. He yelled in a desperate frenzy. You are only a martial artist. How is this possible? I said do not come any closer. Do you think what you are doing is righteous? Do you think what you are doing is no different from what the Jin clan is doing? Do you really think the Jin clan's cultivators reached foundation building without consuming any pills? The same goes for you. Did you not receive a pill from my father a few years ago? You took that pill, so you are no different either. Eunhyun pulled the glowing red pill from his robe and held it up. He questioned the man. Are you talking about this? Eunhyun crushed the pill into dust with his bare hand. He spoke with a cold voice. Do not worry. There is not a chance in hell that I would take anything made by cultivators. Farewell. The prince shouted in a panic. Wait! The sword sliced through the air in a blinding flash. He wondered to himself, why is my body upside down? Ah, I see. I have been beheaded. This attack is impossible from a chi-refining cultivator like him. A realm beyond chi-refining. Only a foundation-building cultivator or Kim Young-hoon, who surpassed 5 energies converging to the origin, could do this. Eunhyun's life flashed before his eyes. He remembered his journey since the first regression. He wondered to himself, was it the second regression? A memory of a younger Kim Young-hoon appeared. He cheered as he held his sword high in the rain. Finally, I killed a foundation-building cultivator. Martial artists can defeat cultivators. Eunhyun thought to himself. A long time ago, our second life felt like an instant. I taught Young-hoon and we overcame challenges together. There were days when we had hoped to defeat cultivators, and days when we witnessed our hope getting crushed. I could not do anything back then. If only I were stronger. If only I worked harder. If only I could reach further. Stronger. Harder. Further. I finally reached the realm I had dreamed of. I cannot die like this. Not this time. I have to cut him down. I have to. The prince coughed and struggled to sit up. He spoke with a shaky voice. I am alive. It must be the artifact my father gave me. He said it has the one-time ability to strike the enemy with the power of foundation building. He laughed hysterically as he looked at Eunhyun. I won, you mortal. Eunhyun stared at the sky. He thought to himself, why is it always the cultivators who win? Foundation building cultivators eventually die. Martial artists can now resist against cultivators. The prince looked at him with a mocking grin. What about it, you mortal? Eunhyun counted the enemies. He thought to himself, 50 foundation building cultivators. The greatest martial artist in the world managed to defeat one cultivator, yet there are as many cultivators as stars in the night sky. Eunhyun groaned as he tried to reach for his weapon. The prince touched his chest. Shit, I used all my spiritual power. Eunhyun thought to himself, an impassable wall, something out of my league. I was on the brink of giving up there. The pressure made me want to give up martial arts and go back to being a soap salesman. But he was different. Young-hoon looked over his shoulder. He spoke with a determined voice. I will stop them. Run. Eunhyun reached out toward his friend. Young-hoon stood firm as the rain poured down. The prince screamed in a terrified frenzy. What? Do not fuck around with me. How could a mortal like you have such obsession? How? Young-hoon roared back as he charged. Do not sacrifice yourself. Do not go. Eunhyun thought to himself. Young-hoon smiled. He spoke with a gentle voice. You have always tried your best. I have watched you this entire time. You will be able to see the sun rise on better days. Eunhyun had trained in martial arts his entire life. His body spent years suffering. His hand held the sword until it shattered. The martial arts he had refined his entire life moved his body even after death to finish his mission. Prince Mokli-yun was in unbelievable fear until his death. And when Seo Eunhyun's head fell onto the ground, he was still smiling. Kim Young-hoon stood in a garden of light and looked at Eunhyun. He spoke with a warm smile. Yes, that is how you do it. Keep going. Your effort will never betray you. Keep the mindset that if you can reach enlightenment in the morning, you can die peacefully in the evening. Never forget that feeling. Your efforts will surely someday bring you a morning that is worthy of your sweat. A glowing green stag leapt through the forest of stars. That was Seo Eunhyun's fifth regression.